Chapter 391, Great War of Saints and Demons 6. A battle fought on a beach not too long ago flitted in and out of Yu Yonghyok's irises. On that day, the spear that separates the boundaries of the oceans clashed against the abundant night. It was the battle of Gigantomachia he witnessed back then. In that place, he saw the boundless ocean and infinite night go head-to-head. Poseidon and Hades. A battle of statuses between two myth-grade constellations. The brilliant showdown of the enormous statuses possessed by the constellations occupying the top rungs of the expansive star stream. Yu Yonghyok bore witness to that battle and was shocked by it, felt moved by it, and had to despair because of it. And he stood back up again. He did what he needed to do in order to surpass those distant enemies. This sword strike was a technique he created by copying those enemies he couldn't surpass yet. Breaking the sky swordsmanship. Inner mysteries, Chinese letter. Split the dark ocean. Yu Yonghyok's sword moved along with the illusion of the jet-black ocean splitting apart. It was a sword strike imitating Hades's scythe colliding against the spear of the oceans. The ether blade burning up in the blue hue was immediately dyed in the black light, and the explosive magical energy from the transcender substituted for the darkness of underworld. And in the next instant, Yu Yonghyok's breaking the sky energy cut apart Anubis's torso. Gualia. The powerful sword strike tore through Anubis's body. It screamed and collapsed to the ground. Even if they were in the 80th scenario, this power to defeat a fable-grade constellation was. Many constellations are shocked by Incarnation Yu Yonghyok's godship. The power of a human that had finally exceeded that of constellations caused them to seethe in agitation. Attack him together. Fire, kill him. Someone's cry became the signal for the bombardment to commence. Arrows imbued with powerful magical energy rained down. Yu Yonghyok confronted them all from the front. Pushuat. Even as the arrows pierced his side, shoulders, and thighs, he stood before Anna Croft to deflect all of the attacks. She had to ask him, why? You'll die. Then why don't you let me? Not in this place. That isn't a part of Kim Dokya's plan. She bit her lips hard. Kim Dokya. Of course, she knew who he was. However, what was he anyway? Just what was his importance that this proud and unyielding man decided to bend his own belief for that guy? Yu Yonghyok muttered loudly as if to answer her silent inquiry. I once glimpsed the memories from the regression turn of a far-flung future. A far-flung future, he said. Before she could say something, though, he continued on. It seemed that many things had happened. Well, looks like you've glimpsed something really fun then. Did you also happen to see the end of the third turn, too? I did not. However, I did see what your future was like. Anna Croft's shoulders flinched a little from surprise. She possessed precognition, but all she could spy on was snippets of the future. She definitely couldn't see the distant future beyond this world line. Yu Yonghyok asked her, do you wish to know? Not at all. He ignored her and opened his lips. Like how you've inherited the memories of yourself from the second turn, the you of the next turn will inherit the memories of you from the third turn. Just like that, you'll continue to use retrocognition to glimpse into the portions of memories from the previous regression turns and inch forward into the future, just like how you've doing until now. You're speaking of obvious things. Someone who can't see the future can also say stuff like that. What are you trying to tell me here? Replied Anna Croft with a dismissive smirk. But Yu Yonghyok's expression remained unreadable. Past the 700th turn, many things changed. Me, under the curse of remembering our past turns, we grew weaker and weaker. No, hang on. And past the 900th turn and then the 1000th. One day you told me this. Yu Yonghyok slowly blinked his eyes and recalled a certain passage he read from the records of the 1863rd turn. Yu Yonghyok, I won't be transferring the memories of everything that happened so far to the next turn. I can't do this anymore. I'm not like you. I can't keep fighting on while carrying all this burden. From here on, you'll be alone. Are you confident of carrying the burdens of everything? Anna Croft's complexion paled as she yelled out, "That can't be me. I won't break down, I am." "You'll change." His words digging in like a sharp oracle made her entire body shudder. Her empty eyes began quaking next. Before she could say something, though, he opened his mouth first. "However, I'd like you not to change." Her eyes opened wider and wider. "I wish to keep hatting you. I plan to remember every single thing you've done and never forgive you for them, for that purpose." He left the trembling Anna Croft behind and stepped forward while unleashing his status. "You must not go to the next turn." As they broke past the endless rain of arrows, they saw a lone constellation standing on the field, waiting. He was the strongest being on this battlefield. "All of you step aside. I shall fight that human." It was the God King of Thunderbolts, Indra. Countless other constellations could only tremble when confronted by his enormous power that symbolized the status of Vedas. Kugagagugu. Constellation, Thursday's Thunder, is keeping a wary eye on God King of Thunderbolts. The constellation who also symbolized thunder and lightning, Thursday's Thunder, seemed to be burning with fighting spirit more than usual. "Yu Younghyuk, stop, even if it's you." Yu Younghyuk ignored Anna Croft's words and dashed towards the God King of Thunderbolts. He already knew the status of Indra well enough. This being's power exceeded even that of Surya he fought some time ago. However, he wasn't planning to cower before this being. Not at all. Still not enough. Indra was not his ultimate target. Compared to the myth-grade constellations or outer gods he needed to fight in the future, a being like Indra was simply another crossing on the road he had to walk on. Also, the being he wanted to surpass more than anyone else was. Constellation, secretive plotter, is impressed by your will to fight. 5,000 coins have been sponsored. Yu Younghyuk's figure soared high into the sky before shooting straight towards Indra. How arrogant! The thunderbolts fired by the God King split the land apart. Ash-colored arcs of electricity danced violently as the field cracked open like a crashing tsunami wave. The electrical currents pounced up and tore into Yu Younghyuk's arm. They tore into his legs and penetrated into his stomach. With every step he took in the air, he looked back to the time he had lived so far and thought about the lives he might have to repeat. The 41st regression turn. The 362nd regression turn. Times Kim Dokya had shown him, and then the 1863rd turn. The future he got to spy through the secretive plotter, flitted in and out of Yu Younghyuk's brain. For him, this was a battle against himself. The realm he couldn't reach no matter how hard he tried. There he was, the third turn of himself struggling crazy hard, and then struggling some more so that he could surpass those moments. Quack-quack-quack-quack. Yu Younghyuk plowed forward as if he was borrowing all of the possibilities of the life he'd have to live, and the lives he might have lived. The breaking the sky swordsmanship. Breaking the sky sword saint once told him this, that he should not permit the heavens existing above him, that he should destroy everything, annihilate, and to disdain everything. However, what was he supposed to do when, after destroying the sky above, he finds there was something else up there? The secret technique, inner mystery transmission. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts is ridiculing you. The constellations looking down on incarnations from beyond the heavens above. This sword strike was created solely to cut them down. As he sensed the magical energy flowing within dark heavenly demon sword, Yu Younghyuk recalled Chiak Junjeong's sword. With just one sword, he cut apart mountains. With that sword, he let the world know that even the oceans could be cut. So, what did one need in order to cut a star down with just a single sword? Kaboom! One of Yu Younghyuk's legs exploded in midair. It wasn't because of Indra's thunderbolts, however. His muscles, tightly bunched together to a nonsensical degree, exploded with a loud noise. This noise was caused by the fables permeating into every corner of the muscle fibers, exploding to create a forward thrust. "Stop that, you bastard!" He saw the eyes of Indra freaking out. Yu Yonghyuk felt the time slowing down. No, it didn't actually slow down, but rather he had sped up instead. In order to destroy a star, you must become a star yourself. This was the answer for someone like him, born as a mere human, to reach the constellations. The speed that a life form couldn't withstand began tearing apart Yu Yonghyuk's entire body. That was the price to pay to become a star when he wasn't one. His body shot forward like a black supernova and broke past the walls of the arcing electricity, shattered all the constellations daring to block him, and finally reached Indra's heart. The shooting star slash. He felt a definite sensation from the tip of the dark, heavenly demon sword. And then there was the voice coming from a star splitting apart, accompanied by the sound of something exploding in the distant cosmos. Yu Yonghyuk sensed his body falling from the air. His eyesight blurred and he couldn't confirm the sight of the star he managed to cut. The muscles of his body refused to heed his orders. Not an ounce of energy remained in him. He still felt someone catching him through his fatting five senses, though. The one he hated the most was busy, running away with him in her embrace. Yu Yonghyuk, you're truly insane, but I already knew that. While vomiting out more blood, Yu Yonghyuk spoke to her. Indra. He's probably dead. His half-god body exploded after all. Even if he survived that, he shouldn't be called a living being anymore. Anna Croft's voice was infused with a certain, unexplainable heat. Just her emotions conveyed in the tone of her voice was enough for him to understand what he had achieved here today. He had managed to destroy a star. A measly little human had indeed destroyed one of the 8 brightest stars of Vedas, the Lakapala. All constellations belonging to the nebula Vedas are furious at Incarnation Yu Yonghyuk. Sadly, though, there were still countless stars left in the sky. If I hadn't rescued you just now, you'd have died there. He knew that she was speaking the truth. Through her precognition, Anna Croft must have seen his death. Even though I did rescue you, it's nothing more than just delaying the inevitable, though. Blood continued to flood out of the wide-open wound on his waist. One of his legs was gone, and he didn't have any strength left to hold his blade upright. And eventually, her fleeing steps came to a halt, too. He couldn't see the front, but he understood what her action meant. They no longer had any place left to escape on this battlefield. Anna Croft spoke. Yu Yonghyuk, I don't have any desire to live up to the 700th turn alongside you. I'm the same. But then, god damn it, looks like we'll have to live together in the 4th turn. That's not going to happen, because I won't die in this place. Yu Yonghyuk didn't possess precognition ability like her. He didn't know what would happen next. Even then, he continued to speak in a hushed voice. Because his voice was fading away, yet it was definitely not the voice of a man preparing himself for death. Almost at the same time, roars of crackling thunders could be heard coming from the far side of the heavens. They did not belong to Indra's thunderbolts. The space-time was distorting, and the noises were generated by something crossing over a gigantic gate. Yu Yonghyuk couldn't see that spectacle, but Anna Croft witnessed it in his stead. It was an army enveloped in pitch-black darkness. A single realm buried deep inside an ancient myth was currently crossing over to this world. Yu Yonghyuk, you stupid bastard. Yu Yonghyuk heard the loud yelling from the one standing at the forefront of that army and spoke up. Because I have allies in this turn who won't betray me. Nebula Underworld has joined the Great War of Saints and Demons. Chapter 392, Great War of Saints and Demons 7. The strength of Underworld was incredible. The army of the Underworld that entered the 121st Regional Conflict completely swept away the combatants from both the good and evil camps and reverted all good evil within the battlefield to neutral. Advance. Constellations participating in the 121st Regional Conflict saw the army of hell encroaching their battlefield, and either they ran away or ended up being incapacitated. 121st Regional Conflict has been forcibly concluded. Applicable battle's outcome can't be decided. Lack of will to fight by the participants of the applicable battle has been confirmed. Applicable regional conflict has been excluded from the category of Great War of Saints and Demons. I glanced at the now concluded battlefield and, without taking a break, shifted my gaze over to the next gate. 117th Gate is currently in activation. 119th Gate is currently in activation. 123rd Gate is currently in activation. According to the plan, my companions should be in the middle of a dogfight inside the 117th and 119th gates right now, having split up earlier. Jiang Huiwan and Yi Hyunseong were in the 117th gate, while the 119th was manned by Han Soo-yong and Yu Young-hyuk. Which means I should help with the situation in the 117th rather than 119th. Constellation, mass production type maker, says that you must enter the 123rd gate. Yep. But there shouldn't be anyone there. I focused on the blurry images of the battlefield that could be seen from the gate, and then, what the F? I immediately issued a new order to advance. All personnel, we march through the 123rd gate. My order prompted 30,000 plus combatants from the underworld to march through the gate. The great army of the netherworld, riding on the pitch-black clouds, crossed the portal and began arriving on the skis of the 123rd Regional Conflict Zone. Yu Young-hyuk, you stupid bastard. There he was, bleeding profusely and dying, and then Anna Croft carrying him on her back. I kind of understood why that fool decided to not stick to the plan and participated in this particular battle. Demon King of Salvation. I heard her urgent calling, and at the same time, I spotted the enemies hurriedly chasing after her and her human cargo. They were constellations from the very angry Vedas and Papyrus. Most of them were historical grade, but there were a few fable grade among them as well. Your affiliated camp is evil. Meanwhile, Yu Young-hyuk and Anna Croft were on the camp of good. In other words, the enemies pursuing them were evil. If this was the Great War of Saints and Demons of the original storyline, then they would have been my comrades instead. Kill them all. Unfortunately, my allies in this battlefield were neither good nor evil. For the glory of Underworld. The three judges riding on the Hellsteeds burning in hells, flames roared out in unison and dashed towards the enemy ranks. Iacchus of mercy and righteousness. Minos of wisdom and law. Rhadamanthes of impartiality and incorruptibility. When alive, they walked the path of the king, and now they tread on the paths of the netherworld's judges. They unleashed the auras befitting the fable-grade constellations that they were and began cutting down the approaching enemies' numbers. How come the underworld has? Kiwaraka. I landed next to Yu Young-hyuk and Anna Croft while watching the enemies bleed out fables and die. His entire body was covered in grievous wounds. Even his coat, featuring strong resistance against heat, couldn't withstand the high temperature and had melted halfway down. I couldn't really hear his breathing either. I observed his left leg, now gone. There were traces of it disappearing due to the internal expansion force. This idiot, he must have used shooting star slash. He might be able to fool the others, but there was no fooling my eyes. This was a truly stunning rate of growth. Originally, the shooting star slash was Yu Young-hyuk's hidden trump card that he barely managed to learn after going past the 1000th regression turn. But here he was, managing to reach that realm on only his third turn. He's still breathing. How did he end up like this? He was trying to save me. Yu Young-hyuk was saving you. She quietly stared back at me, but her gaze eventually dropped lower. Her ensuing voice sounded bitter. He said that my death isn't a part of your plan. For a moment there, I felt it a complete loss. Why would Yu Young-hyuk? I took over his care from Anna Croft. I pressed his pressure points to stem the bleeding, and after laying him down, I took a better look at his current condition. The shooting star slash was a technique the current him couldn't handle yet. The left leg that somehow managed to withstand the explosive forward thrust was beyond saving. Limb dismemberments couldn't be healed even with Elaine Forest essence. I sighed for a brief moment there, before pulling out a certain item from my inner pocket, and it was something that reminded one of a tentacle belonging to a dark, sooty-colored squid. Fragments of Squid Kim Dakya's seventh tentacle. Anna Croft glared at the item with suspicious eyes. What is that? I got it as a gift not too long ago. A gift on that. I was at a loss again as to how I should explain this. Actually, this item was a not-for-sale bonus article available only during the Kim Dakya Company collaboration event held by Mass Production Type Maker, just before the Great War of Saints and Demons went underway. I remembered that those who purchased a brand new Ferragini received this on a first-come first-served basis. I can still vividly recall the conversation I had with the Mass Production Type Maker back then. Thank you, all thanks to you, this season has been a huge success. The tentacles of Squid Kim Dakya were all gone in less than 1 minute, you know. No matter how hard I thought about it, this just didn't make any sense. There were constellations who bought Ferragini just to get their hands on my legs. The Mass Production Type Maker grinned slyly and asked me, "What's wrong? Do you wish to know who they were?" "No, not really. Besides all that, how did you acquire the fragments of my tentacles?" Of course, they are not your real tentacles. No, those were simply kraken legs. Here, why don't you take one yourself as a souvenir? I was too lazy to explain all this to Anna Croft, so I simply handed the item over to her and ignored her question altogether. Once she got a hold of it, though, more suspicion clouded up her expression. "Why is your name attached to this kraken leg?" "You don't need to know. Just activate the Elixir Maker attribute instead. Mix your blood with this item and have him eat them." A kraken leg possessed the effect of healing grievous wounds such as dismemberment, as well as to maximize the user's base self-healing ability, as well. And then, Anna Croft's blood carried the effects of elixirs, so when the two were mixed together, it'd be possible to heal any serious injuries pretty quickly. For some reason, though, she seemed to be hesitating, however. "But if I feed him my blood, he won't become your subordinate." It had been said before, Anna Croft's blood possessed a power to make anyone who drinks it come under her influence. Because the current Yu Yong-hyuk has higher status than you. She flinched slightly when she heard my words. Meanwhile, I observed the unconscious Yu Yong-hyuk sleeping quietly on the ground. He wouldn't become her subordinate or some such. I didn't see any trace of him activating recovery, though. It seemed that he was planning to keep that power to the last possible second. He made a wise decision. If he wasted recovery in this place, then I'd not be able to borrow his powers when it was really needed later. Gotta hand it to this sunfish bastard. I grumbled a little and turned around to see the sight of the underworld soldiers sweeping the enemies away like an incoming tidal wave. But then, upon taking a closer look, I could see that wave falter unstably, as if the ends of the wave were being blocked by a massive dam and were crumbling away. And in the middle of the waves, a stupendous amount of sparks were dancing and exploding. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, is roaring out in pure rage. The God King of Thunderbolts. Anna Croft spoke with a stiff expression. But that can't be. I witnessed his half-god body getting destroyed, so how? With that, I could figure out more or less on what had transpired here. It seemed that the star Yu Yong-hyuk had cut down was that dude over there. Indra possesses many incarnation bodies. He must have called one over here after paying for the probability. Out of all the constellations of Vedas, Indra had so many incarnation bodies that one couldn't count them using one's fingers. It was a pretty famous anecdote of the three main gods of Vedas, asking Indra, "Which number Indra are you?" all the time. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, has summoned star relic Vajra. Along with the loud boom akin to the ski splintering, the front of the underworld army began splitting apart. The Vajra, Indra's main weapon capable of shooting thunderbolts containing an incredible amount of magical energy. But I simply snatched up the incoming thunderbolt with my bare hand. Su chu chu chut. And then I threw it back where it came from. I could see Indra making a stunned face, but it's still too early for that. So you're the demon king of salvation. And you're Indra. Why is the underworld helping you? Do I have a reason to explain that to you? Indra stared at me with a look of a person discovering a mysterious life form. You are evil. Behave according to the scenario's rules. I shall overlook your disrespectful manners this time in consideration towards other demon kings, so. It was you who caused my comrade to end up looking like that, right? So what about it? That is the price to pay for an arrogant human when he opposed a constellation. Do you wish to avenge him then? Avenge, was it? That guy hates it when someone else pays the debt for him. Right, he's the kind of a guy who must settle the score himself even if it kills him. So, the reason why I'm going to kill you now isn't because of you Young-hyuk. A demon king with a uselessly chatty mouth, aren't you? Quaboom! Beams of blinding thunderbolts blanketed the sky and rained down on my position. I managed to deflect a few and defended against others. Some did land on me, but the pain was rather tolerable. Indra did possess many incarnations, but accordingly, the dispersion of his powers was just as great. On top of this, he suffered irreversible damage from Yu Young-hyuk's attack during his half-god body state, so he'd be unable to even summon up half of his usual power right now. However, Indra was still smiling away. Oh, you foolish demon king, you shall regret this. Nebula Vedas has blessed God King of Thunderbolts with its grace. The nebula had spent probability for him. The power enveloping the God King was growing even greater. Rapid changes took place on Indra's incarnation body, and soon, golden rays of light began shooting out from his entire figure. He grew humongous, and the 1,000 eyes he possessed began opening up one by one. We can't let him continue. Anna Croft must have seen something through precognition, because she began crying out next. Hell, it looked like to me that Indra and Vedas had made up their minds for good this time. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, has activated the stigma, eyes that observe everything. When all those eyes fully open up, Indra would be able to display the power of his true self through an incarnation body. Currently, about half of those eyes had opened. Kugugugugu. At this rate, every incarnation participating in the 123rd conflict would be swept away by the overflowing electrical shock. However, I was getting progressively happier watching that electrical energy filled to the brim with Vedas, probability instead. Actually, I have a score to settle with your nebula. Make that a very big score. I remembered everything the Nebula Vedas did to me. Well, anyone who had suffered that badly would be the same as me. I unsheathed unbreakable faith and continued on. Because of you lot, I had to become a demon king. During the Dark Castle's last scenario, I became the 73rd demon king. I had to order my comrades to kill me, and in the process, ended up inflicting them with terrible memories back then. You have activated Demon King transformation. The status I earned after becoming the Demon King flooded out with my heart as the center. Black wings tore out from the back of my shoulders, and horns broke out from my head. Fable, Demon King of Salvation, has begun its storytelling. Back when I lost my life to the swords of my allies and was cast out to the scenario's horizon, I looked up at the heavens and swore to myself over and over again. Wait for a little while longer, because I will bring all of you down from the damn sky. The stars in the distant sky, seemingly out of reach no matter what fables I managed to acquire. The distance so far away that it induced despair. Now I could clearly see the locations of the stars that previously seemed so high up. I spoke in my true voice. Back then all of you seemed so high up. I grinned and stared at Indra. But it seems that you lot were actually located lower than I thought. Chapter 393, Episode 74, Great War of Saints and Demons 8. As soon as words left my lips, golden streams of aura flooded out from Indra's entire figure. It was the same story back then with Surya, Those from Vedas must have had a thing for the golden color. Kuaya. Waves of powerful status formed a complicated network with Indra as their center. Ripples of electrical energy crashed into me, and I could hear Indra's laughter at the same time. Indeed, this was a mighty power that no constellation would dare to go up against. A violent suppressive force that ripped through one's body, pulverized it, and crushed it. Great fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. However, Great fable, Torch that swallowed the myth, has begun its storytelling. I was withstanding it. Sparks danced in the air like fireflies. I brushed past the currents of the electrical energy and took a step forward, then another one after that. Many constellations are startled by your status. Constellations on the other side of the battlefield were looking at me with wide-open eyes. Exclusive skill bookmark is activating. Fifth bookmark has been initiated. Exclusive skill, Lightning Transformation LV 23+13 has been initiated. Your current physical constitution is different from that of the applicable character. Your status has overcome the physical constitution penalty. I arrived before Indra's eyes as the blinding flashes of light continued to go off. Kuoke. My powerful kick to his stomach resulted in the opened eyes there to go pop, one after the other. Other eyes looked at me in pure shock as if they couldn't accept this situation. Not that surprising, really. It was impossible for a newbie fable grade belonging to a small nebula to exercise this much status, after all. Indeed, it was impossible to exert this much power with only the two great fables that I managed to acquire. Great fable, Kaiksenix Archipelago, is aiding you. Great fable, Underworld, is providing you with probability. A single story you have compiled has almost reached its climax. However, the story was different now. With my two fables and Kaiksenix Archipelago's fable, as well as Underworld's great fable all working together, I could exhibit power on a similar level to a constellation who had completed their climax, at least within the confines of this great war of saints and demons. How can you with that much probability, you bastard? The current me wouldn't lose against an upper-rank fable-grade constellation. I am Sakra Divanam Indra, the leader of the 8 Lokapalas and the king of Vedas. Even if that constellation just so happened to be the king of those gods. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, is activating thunderstorm of heaven and earth. Eyes found all over Indra began emitting bright light, and the entire world became awash in pure whiteness. The sky was seemingly writhing within the lightning itself. I dashed towards that spectacle of a thunderstorm. Probability you've used far exceeds the limit by a great degree. Blessing from Nebula, Underworld, is protecting your incarnation body. Vajra and unbreakable faith collided. Indra's lightning and the status of lightning transformation opposed each other as gray sparks danced in the air. My sword was pushed back by Veda's status and flew up into the sky. A smile of satisfaction crept up on Indra's face. However, the sword was just a diversion from the get-go. I didn't miss that moment the sword was sent flying and powerfully stomped on his leg. Kuuake. Just as Indra's massive figure crumbled, I grabbed the bastard's collars and slammed him down to the ground. He crashed headfirst and gasped out in pain, unable to withstand the impact force. I easily climbed on top of him now that he had lost his balance, and began pounding on his face with my bare fists. Accompanied by the sounds of flesh being squashed, lumps of fables poured out from Indra's mouth. The measly underworld dares to, Olympus, measly little low-ranked nebula dares to. Measly underworld, you want to belittle my family, is that it? The number of constellations actually affiliated with underworld was less than 10. Even then, there was a reason why other constellations feared this nebula. Nebula, Underworld, has handed down the divine punishment of wrath. You see, my parents, they can get really terrifying when they are angry. Constellation, Queen of the Darkest Spring, nods her head. Blessing from the constellation, father of rich night, is protecting you. Perhaps as a display of his final struggle, a baptism of electricity exploded forth from Indra's body. My skin began burning up like charcoal, and my heart being electrocuted pounded away irregularly. My vision flickered like a broken lamp, too. I gritted my teeth. This level of lightning, compared to what I had to go through at Kyuji's hands, this was nothing. I extended my hand out, an unbreakable faith that got flung away during our initial clash returned to my grasp. I powerfully stabbed Indra's heart with the blade enveloped in the pure white magical energy. Along with the sound of Pushu Shuk, Indra's incarnation body writhed. How much time passed by like that? The trembling body eventually stopped moving and sagged powerlessly. I leaned closer and whispered to his ear, "Try reviving again and again. I'll just keep killing you." And then a series of messages cascaded down. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, has suffered horrible damage to his true body. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, isn't summoning any other incarnation bodies. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, has given up on the applicable scenario. Another defeat has been recorded on the Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts fable. You have become one of God King of Thunderbolts' mortal enemies. A portion of constellations of the star stream are in awe of your achievement. Nebula Vedas has been inflicted with terrible damage. Nebula Vedas is being swallowed up in the storm of probabilities aftermath. Every constellation on this battlefield witnessed a nebula-tasting defeat right in front of their eyes and closed their mouths shut. You have achieved an unbelievable accomplishment. A new fable related to Nebula is germinating in you. I raised my body up from Indra's corpse, leading to the judges commanding the battle formations, as well as the underworld soldiers to kneel before me. Your incarnation body has suffered serious damage. I also felt like collapsing on the ground right about now. Just from thinking about that made me realize how incredible Yu Jung-hyuk was. He managed to defeat Indra in the half-god body state with one attack without the blessing of Underworld. Obviously, I must not lose to him. Is there anyone else who wishes to tour the depths of the Underworld? I couldn't display any weakness in this place. Plenty of enemies remained, and I was the Underworld's prince after all. Constellations of the battlefield are fearful of you. I saw the constellations previously fighting against Underworld hesitantly retreat now. Constellations that had been looking down on me from high up in the sky were now scared of me. Of course, not everyone was like that. Unlike the constellations from Vedas and Papyrus, the party from Asgard was still intact. Constellation, God of Fairness and Friendliness, is looking at you. Constellation, Flames of Muspelheim, is looking at you. Constellation, who likes to change genders, is looking at you. Every single one of them were prominent constellations. The God of Fairness and Friendliness must be the God of Light Balder, while the Flames of Muspelheim should definitely be the flame giant Surtur. As for the constellation who likes to change genders, Demon King of Salvation, the incarnation stepping forward to represent Asgard's forces, was someone that I knew pretty well. Selena Kim, we don't have any intentions to fight you. Is that the intentions of the incarnations or the constellations? Selena Kim looked troubled by my question. Unfortunately, this was an important distinction. Constellation, God of Fairness and Friendliness, finds it unacceptable that it must be affiliated with the evil camp. Constellation, Flames of Muspelheim, wishes for a fight that burns brightly. Honestly, I'd be really grateful if that side decided to back away first. Because it wouldn't be good for my side if we ended up fighting Asgard, here, too. Whatever their reason was, several powerful constellations from their side had chosen to participate in this conflict, and Underworld would definitely suffer some losses by fighting against them. On top of this, I had to participate in other regional conflicts as well. Sadly, though, the situation didn't unfold as smoothly as I hoped for. A portion of Nebula Asgard, constellations are displeased with the demon king of salvation. A portion of Nebula Asgard, constellations, argue that they need to make an example out of the demon king of salvation. As expected, it couldn't be helped when it comes to a great nebula, could it? Whether it was constellations or humans, if a large number congregated. Constellation who likes to change genders is persuading Asgard, constellations. NG. Using masterful conversational techniques, the constellation who likes to change genders is arguing that this fight will not be good for either side. I couldn't figure out what's going on with this situation. The constellation who likes to change genders was doing what? Constellations of Asgard are paying attention to the words of the constellation who likes to change genders. It seemed that both Selena Kim and Iris were surprised as well. For a while there, the air was filled with indirect messages thanks to all the back-and forth. Constellation, Flames of Muspelheim, says they can't trust the words of a fool who likes to change genders. Constellation, God of Fairness and Friendliness, says that one's preference and credibility should be separate from each other. Constellation, Thursday's Thunder, argues that, although that fool is naturally a trickster, he can sometimes speak of sensible things. A portion of Asgard, constellations argue that they should not forget the distress Asgard found itself in after trusting that constellation's words before. Constellation who likes to change genders argues that Asgard will suffer losses in this battlefield, unrelated to the worth of his own name. Well, this was a mess, all right. In any case, I became pretty sure of who that constellation who likes to change genders was by looking at the unfolding situation. Constellation, Goddess of Love and Cats, argues that by leaving this battlefield, they will suffer losses related to the great fable of the great war of saints and demons. Constellation who likes to change genders argues that that might not be the case. And so, just how long did they argue back and forth for? Constellations of Asgard have come to a decision. A short while later, I spotted Selena Kim's complexion brighten on the other side. She quickly opened her lips. Constellation Nims are agreeing with us. Asgard does not have any intentions to fight against you and Underworld. Nebula Asgard makes it clear that there is no reason to fight you. I had no idea how that constellation managed to convince his uptight, stubborn fellows of Asgard, but there was no denying that this friendly offer would be good for us. I nodded my head, and constellations affiliated to Underworld and Asgard all withdrew their status at once. I, as well, canceled the Demon King transformation. Constellation who likes to change genders is looking at you. Constellation who likes to change genders is praising his own accomplishment. For sure, without that constellation's help, an unnecessary fight might have broken out. I briefly lowered my head as a sign of my appreciation. Constellation who likes to change genders wants a reward. Do you want coins from me? Constellation who likes to change genders says he has a very small favor to ask. A favor, you say? Constellation who likes to change genders adds that this favor is nothing serious. A small, nothing serious favor, was it? I was getting more worried instead. I pondered it for a bit before making my reply. If it's not a favor that will harm Kim Dokya Company, then I can do it. I carefully studied the modifier attached to the indirect messages before adding something else. And yes, it must not be about changing genders. Constellation who likes to change genders says that it definitely isn't a favor like that. If it wasn't, then well. I nodded my head, and a sound similar to a child laughing could be heard coming from the sky next. All beings in the 123rd regional conflict no longer hold any intention to fight. Constellations from Vedas have lost their will to fight, while only a small number of constellations from Papyrus had participated from the beginning, and they were unable to carry on due to Yu Young-hyuk. On top of this, both Asgard and Underworld currently were not intending on fighting each other either. 123rd regional conflict has been forcibly concluded. Applicable regional conflicts outcome can't be decided. Lack of will to fight by the participants of the applicable battle has been confirmed. Applicable regional conflict has been excluded from the category of Great War of Saints and Demons. With this, the 123rd regional conflict had drawn to a close. Chaos points have risen by 5. Warning, chaos points have surpassed 70. The chaos points had already gone past 70. There was no way that Metatron and Augars wouldn't feel the heat with things like this, especially so with the former, who had seen the destruction of Eden during the 1863rd regression turn. Thinking of participating in the next regional conflict with my other companions in it, I looked up at the gates in the sky. 117th gate is currently in activation. 119th gate is currently in activation. One was where Jiang Huiwan and Yihyeonseong were, while the other gate was Han Soo-young's. I quietly stared at the two gates before choosing which one to enter and walked into it. But then, you can't enter the applicable gate. I can't, why not? Applicable gate's regional conflict has been concluded. The battle had ended already. I looked behind me and found Anna Croft staring dazedly at the gate. Kim Dak-ya. The moment I heard her, my heart grew cold. Regional conflicts of the Great War of Saints and Demons, with no victor among good and evil, were treated as invalid and would enter the forced conclusion sequence. However, this regional conflict had simply been concluded, meaning victor has been decided in the applicable regional conflict. Meaning, Kim Dak-ya company that entered the gate in question had failed in their mission. Death penalty will be applied to the defeated participants of the regional conflict. Chapter 394, A Certain Heart 1. O the noble and majestic master of the dark clouds, black flame dragon, what the hell, why is this incantation so lengthy? Hey, is this for real? Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, nods its head. Han Soo-young spat out a series of expletives and dodged the incoming spears of light. There was a poo-shot, and a streak of blood escaped from her shoulder. Constellation, master of the ark, is grinning. The black flame, Han Soo-young wielded, utterly disintegrated several Valkyries in her near vicinity. Stunned by that evil power, other Valkyries shouted out in unison. Kill her. Absolute evil must not be allowed to live. We must stop her from finishing her spell. Han Soo-young continued to smack away the Valkyries flooding her position and muttered to herself, "Isn't it a common courtesy to wait for someone to finish transforming?" She bit her lower lip while watching the great army of Valkyries still rushing in. Now normally, it'd not be any trouble for her to deal with lower-class historical figure-grade incarnations. The issue was with the skill these Valkyries possessed. Nebula Eden has currently activated Hour of Divine Punishment. The Hour of Divine Punishment. This skill was really similar to the Hour of Judgment Jiang Huiwan used. Although the former didn't boast the same level of buff as the latter, it still greatly enhanced one's combat abilities against evil. Valkyries blessed with that skill were numbering not in the dozens, but in the hundreds. Raphael, your skills have become rusty. On one corner of the battlefield, Asmodeus was cackling away in madness while swinging its claws around in the air. And in the air, demonic energy and divinity collided to produce loud explosions. Just above that, there was a piece of floating cloud. Raphael was riding on that. Stop being snarky, or get your pee-hole stuffed again. Ahahat, your propensity to quip is still the same, I see. The tone of the voice was playful, but the waves of status contained within were certainly not. Han Soo-young could only scowl deeply in silence. No matter how she looked, that insane demon king didn't seem to have any leeway to help her out. Constellation, morning star goddess, is deliberating on her participation. Constellation, the one who faces God, is frowning at the demonic aura coming from abyssal black flame dragon. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking at another place in restlessness. Not only that, there were still 3 great constellations on the side of good, remaining 2. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, says not to worry and complete the spell. The darkest dark, the most legendary tale, greatest dragon among them all, the blessing of the Black Flame Dragon shall accompany this bod. Screw this shit. You're doing this deliberately, aren't you? I'm not doing this anymore. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, cackles and says that's enough. In the following moment, incredible demonic aura exploded out from Han Suyong's body. She closed her eyes after sensing the vast status rising up from the deepest part of her. As her consciousness slowly submerged under the surface, several things in her mind began snapping loose. Thoughts of invalidating this battlefield, or Kim Dakya Company striding on the ambiguous ethical line between good and evil, all broke in half and became paralyzed. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is starting advent of half-god. When she reopened her eyes, she had become a different person. Incarnation Han Suyong's mind has been tainted by demonic aura. Kug. Her irises were now dyed in the purple-colored demonic aura. She covered half of her face with her hand and wiped the blood on her cheek. She licked the traces of fresh blood on the back of her hand and asked, "How amusing. Is this all you can do?" The shoulders of all the Valkyries shuddered after they sensed that unknown aura, and they quickly distanced themselves. Han Suyong shouted out loudly as bright light began emitting from her, "Kneel before me. This is the difference of status between you and, hey, stop spouting bullshit with my mouth." Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, says that it can't be helped if his true power is to be unleashed. No, hang on. If you want to say something, then say stuff that makes. Aurea, taste my dark shadow phone. No, not something like that. Although her incantation effort was a bit of a mess, it still must have been effective, as a huge shadow suddenly drew below Han Suyong's feet. The land seemed to quake as the shadow grew even larger, and eventually, it took on the shape similar to that of a dragon. She had seen similar phenomenons as this one several times in the past. Back in the Peaceland and in Dark Castle, she saw constellations using this power before the constellation's shadow, their darkness existing on the reverse side of their starlight. Before long, she was riding on the back of a black dragon, dozens of meters tall. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is roaring out. This was it, the power that couldn't be unleashed until now due to the restriction of probability. The shadow of the Black Flame Dragon carried her and soared high into the air. As the pitch-black shadow was cast onto the skis above, the dragon began pouring out its breath onto the ground below. Kueya. The battlefield was swept clean by the shockwaves. Even the fleeing Valkyries were turned to fine dust in an instant. This absolute power rendered hour of divine punishment and blessings from a nebula completely meaningless. Yua. Perhaps he was reminded of a deeply unpleasant nightmare. The master of the Ark hugged himself and began shivering away. That made sense, though any constellation from Eden would possess a certain amount of fear towards the Apocalypse Dragon, that's why. An Abyssal Black Flame Dragon was one of the strongest candidates among the final dragons from the Book of Revelation. This was the true power of the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon. Even as she suffered from the suppression of the probability building up, Han Suyong still trembled from sheer joy. She did good. She really did good by choosing Abyssal Black Flame Dragon as her sponsor. Die, God damn it, stop it. As if she was suffering from schizophrenia, 2 different things jumped out of her mouth at the same time. Your mind is being tainted by the demonic aura. This power of the Black Flame Dragon was indeed incredible, but it couldn't be abused. The longer it was used, the ego of the incarnation would gradually be assimilated to that of the dragon itself. At this rate, I might end up exactly like Kim Nam-woon in a few years. Completely disregarding her inner worries, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon's shadow proceeded to sweep away over half of the battlefield in no time at all. As if she couldn't sit back and watch any longer, someone finally made a move. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, reveals her status. For the first time ever, the black flame dragon's breath was blocked as the deafening roar rocked the land. The essence of the white flames was cutting down the darkness of the world. The flames of retribution. It was Uriel's star relic, crafted out of the purest fire that burned in the depths of hell. The black flame dragon, blotting out the sky, broke into a grin. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, says that he always wanted to have a showdown. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is hardening her expression. The two Constellation went head-to-head, and the surrounding space was immediately flooded with the dancing blue sparks. Valkyries couldn't withstand the clash of the statuses and collapsed while vomiting blood. Most ancient good is enjoying this regional conflict. Most ancient evil is enjoying this regional conflict. The great good and evil had selected these two constellations as their representatives, and in the midst of it all, there was Han Soo-young, currently being cooked into charcoal by the arcs of blue sparks. Cuck 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 die, you dumb archang, hey you stop, this is no good. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, asks why that's the case. You idiot, if we start fighting Uriel here, everything will be over. Han Soo-young, her face caked with soot, began throwing a wild temper tantrum. She almost ended up fighting for real after getting swept up in the atmosphere earlier, but she knew that nothing good would come out of doing exactly that. And you, Archangel, you wake up too. Are you really going to fight me? Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking at you. Uriel was forming a helpless expression. Anxiety was all too clear to see in her eyes. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, forms a troubled expression. You don't want to fight either, right? I know, so why don't we stop here? And please, why don't you persuade your friends while you're at it too? Han Soo-young's words only managed to make Uriel's anxiety run even deeper. However, the hellfire, activated separately from what her expressions had indicated, and persistently flew in Han Soo-young's direction. The latter didn't give up, though. She believed that there had to be a reason why the Archangel was participating in this regional conflict. Fable, predictive plagiarism, has begun its storytelling. Uriel must have known that this was a trap designed to kill Kim Dok-ya Company. That is why she had to come here personally. What an unfortunate thing it was that the Duke showing up in this battlefield happened to be Abyssal Black Flame Dragon and Han Soo-young. Still, she was a member of Kim Dok-ya Company, so she decided to bring out the cheat key she held back for the rainy day. What will Kim Dok-ya think of you if I end up dying here? Uriel's shoulders trembled faintly. Han Soo-young quickly went for another shot. I'm asking you, are you confident of looking at Kim Dok-ya, free of a guilty conscience after killing me? Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, says that you and your sponsor are evil. God damn it, who cares about good this and evil that? How is that important? You people decided that on your own. Flames of retribution brushed past the black flame dragon's wing. Even as her balance rocked unstably, Han Soo-young looked at Uriel with pleading eyes. The latter's sword swings had become much more half-hearted than before. Just a little bit more, one more push and it'd be over. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is watching the battlefield. Goosebumps broke out all over Han Soo-young after she heard the ensuing indirect messages. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at demon-like judge of fire. Kim Dok-ya, you scary bastard. You have enough leeway to look at this side too. Constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at demon-like judge of fire. Kim Dok-ya didn't say anything. Not a word of request for help, no asking for favors, nothing, just him looking on. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, has stopped moving. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is falling into confusion. Han Soo-young inwardly cried out in elation. Uriel's heart would be a confusing mixture of emotions right about now. On one hand, wanting to save Kim Dok-ya Company, and on the other, the desire to win in the great war of saints and demons. Faint sparks were dancing all around her, Fables that made her who she was began colliding against each other. The fable that she loved the most and the fable she had been living with were clashing with each other. Was it Kim Dak-ya company she liked so much, or the one she belonged to, Eden? Uriel, why are you standing around stupidly like that? Her indecision prompted other constellations to step forward. They were unable to sit back and endure this situation any further. Constellation, Morning Star Goddess, has revealed her status. Constellation, the one who faces God, has revealed its status. Han Soo-young spat out a deep, painful breath, rushing up to her throat and frowned deeply. Your incarnation body has been damaged extensively. In all honesty, she tried to persuade Uriel not just because she didn't want to fight the Archangel. The adverse side effect of Advent of Half-God was already affecting her. That was why. Every joint in her body was being paralyzed, while she felt like vomiting a huge amount of blood right now. The only reason why she suppressed them all was to not display any weakness to these constellations. That was all. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking somewhere else. Substituting for the dazed Uriel, Camel stepped forward instead. He spoke up. My colleague seems to be in distress, so I believe that it'll be better for us to wrap this up soon. I expected much more because it was the Black Flame Dragon, but compared to its modifier, it's nothing much, isn't it? Vakarine's crystal staff containing starlight suddenly emitted bright light, causing countless beams of starlight to rain down from the heavens above. The Black Flame Dragon's shadow was gradually shaving away as the beams of light touched it. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is roaring out in pure rage. The breath fired out by the enraged dragon's shadow poured down from above Vakarine's head. She screamed in panic at the dark ether rushing in and quickly retreated. It was Camel who stepped forward to block that, however. This much is not going to be enough. Camel unsheathed a great sword and cut the breath apart to advance forward. However, the darkest dark, the legend among legends, fires of red flames. Han Soo-young began spouting nonsense, and the Black Flame Dragon's suddenly amplified breath began forcing back both Vakarine and Camel. Vakarine's complexion paled as her coat burned up in an instant. How humiliating, suffering from such a ridiculous technique. Uriel, what are you doing? You must regain yourself. Camel's true voice must have gotten through to her because Uriel seemed to suddenly regain her wits just then. Han Soo-young wiped away the streams of blood and focused her blurring eyesight. If Uriel decided to jump in wholeheartedly, then everything would be over. Before that happened, she must. Right, you're correct. This black square-up war must end quickly. And then Uriel made her move. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is revealing her true self. The blinding status of an archangel dyed the entirety of the battlefield. All of Uriel's wings unfurled in full, and a crown with a crimson-red ruby shimmered brilliantly above her flowing platinum-blonde hair. Her emerald-colored eyes proudly observed the world. Uriel stepped forward while withstanding the incredible storm of probabilities aftermath that came about after unleashing her true body. When facing off against that boundless status, Han Soo-young felt her consciousness waver despite the Black Flame Dragon's grace protecting her. This was the true appearance of the demon-like judge of fire. The archangel of conflagration that cut down tens of thousands of demons, murdered demon kings, and eradicated all evil. The moment she saw those eyes, Han Soo-young realized that she was as good as dead already. In front of that demon-like existence, all evil would have to willingly offer up their heads. Sorry, Kim Dak-ya. The flames of retribution rose up high to split the sky, and in the meantime Han Soo-young sensed the approaching end for once. Fable, predictive plagiarism, can't come up with what will happen next. And then her vision was dyed in pure white, like a completely blank page with nothing on it. However, no matter how long she waited, the expected pain never materialized. Did she die even before she could experience pain? She sneakily opened her eyes, only to be greeted by a completely unexpected spectacle. The flames of retribution that was definitely moving in her direction had changed its shape to a ring and was emitting bright light on the ground. You, move an inch and you'll die. More specifically, after it had tightly wound around the bodies of Vakarine and Camille. My flames can get a bit hot, you see. I'm not kidding, so if you move a muscle, you'll really die. Vakarine could only ask in a dumbfounded tone of voice at this sudden development. Uriel, but why? If you do something like this, the scribe will. Camille's words only made Uriel bitterly complain. Black square CK. I'll just enjoy some disciplinary actions or something later. You think that's important right now? This isn't simply going to end with some disciplinary action. What you did was. Shut up, so what if those chaos points rise up or something? Only after hearing Uriel's true voice did Camille realize that his comrade was being serious here. But why? It was at this point Han Soo-young figured out why Uriel had to unleash the power of her true self. If she were to subjugate another archangel on the same level as her, as well as a high-class constellation without killing them, she had no choice but to release her real power. Uriel was suffering from tremendous pain of the probabilities aftermath, and there was the faintest trace of demonic aura permeating into her dark laces, too. Corruption, the harshest punishment that would be bestowed upon her after she refused to heed the divine order. Just before Han Soo-young could say something to her, Uriel took the initiative away first. I don't have time to explain this and that. Let's quickly invalidate this regional conflict and end it. Her expression was really urgent for some reason. It was at that moment that a thought entered Han Soo-young's head. Even if Uriel did make up her mind, there was no need for her to be this urgent. If an archangel was willing to deal with such a huge loss just to start something, then there must be a very good reason for that. So, what could possibly make her behave so urgently like this? It wasn't that difficult to figure out the answer. My Hui-Wan is in danger. Chapter 395, Episode 75, A Certain Heart 2. We can do this. We won't know it until we actually start fighting, said Jiang Hui-Wan exactly 3 hours ago. Doesn't matter whether they are demon kings or not, tell them to come. We aren't that weak anymore, right? The ones listening to her were the reincarnators, the ones that chose good during the past regional conflicts, as well as the lucky few that survived the battlefields invalidated by Kim Dokya's company. These were people who had lost their worldview. 117th Regional Conflict is commencing. Your affiliated camp is good. If I knew this might happen, I wouldn't have come. Can't we return to our old world? A few people began muttering in fear, and the turmoil spread among the crowd in an instant. How can we fight against something like that? Asia. A ship of evil was surging in from the distance. It was massive. Without a doubt, it was a fable weapon equipped with incredible functionalities. Gaiek. The waves supporting the massive ship and flooding in were actually a great army consisting of 7th-grade Demonkind Dark Warriors. There were so many that it was near impossible to count them all. At a casual glance, there had to be several tens of thousands. It was a spectacle that couldn't be described as a mere regional conflict. Jiang Hui-Wan saw the eyes of the reincarnators filled with fear and thought to herself. She couldn't demand everyone to be brave here. It was only obvious that they would be scared. They lived their whole lives inside the cages of their worldview, only to be used by the invaders from the outside. Demanding such people to be brave was the very act of violence itself. Jiang Hui-Wan wanted to tell them that they didn't have to fight, that she'd do something to resolve this by herself somehow. Everyone hide behind me. There was one man who spoke up for her heart, though. I shall block them. He was one of her oldest comrades, as well as a man who bravely met the adversity Kim Dokya company ran into from the forefront. Can you stop that all by yourself? Of course that'll be impossible. Seeing Yi Hyunseong's generous smile, her frustrated heart seemed to loosen up just a little. He used to have a seizure just from a simple touch of a fingertip, but at this moment, she sensed that they had grown really close. Let's decide on our roles. I'll be in charge of taking on all the attacks. Huey 1 SSI, you should. It's to attack, yes, just like back in Keixenix. Back in the Keixenix archipelago, there were times when they fought alongside each other like this. They shared memories of fighting against the marauding invaders. The toughest shield and the sharpest sword of Kim Dakya Company. Although simple, this tactic best optimized their individual strengths and weaknesses. Shall we get going? Fable, Sword and Shield has begun its storytelling. The first one to dash forward was Yi Hyun-seong. Hurry up. As befitting of a man believing in the superstition of the louder the roar, the stronger one gets, he yelled out loudly enough to shake the world and clashed against the dark waves. Incarnation Yi Hyun-seong is activating Stigma, Steel Transformation LV-10. The steel carapace that had reached their maturity now covered his entire body. The dark warriors colliding with the steel outer layer gleaming in the bright white glare fell down like bowling pins and got crushed to death. Incarnation Yi Hyun-seong is activating Stigma, Great Mountain Smash LV-10. His fist of steel rising up into the air powerfully slammed down on the ground. The waves created by dark warriors wobbled about precariously, causing the ship's movement to become dull as well. Not missing that opportunity, Yi Hyun-seong activated his final Stigma. Incarnation Yi Hyun-seong is activating Stigma, Great Mountain Push LV-10. It was a Stigma that could only pry open the stuck door of a subway in the beginning. But now, that very Stigma was allowing him to push back against a vessel the size of a battleship. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Both of his hands, currently covered in steel transformation, were dyeing in a pitch-black color, and a portion of the carapace covering his body was stripped away. However, Yi Hyun-seong spat out another loud yell and endured the pain. Hurry up. He didn't back off even when subjected to the deluge of sparks. His back leg dug deep into the ground below, and from afar, he resembled a small nail stuck to the ground. But that small nail was successfully stopping the forward movement of that battleship. It had stopped. Yi Hyun-seong Nim has stopped the warship. The reincarnators cheered on at this unbelievable miracle. Unfortunately, the real battle would only begin from now on. The shield had done its job, so it's now time for the sword to do hers. Jiang Hui won sword high into the air after stepping on Yi Hyun-seong's shoulders and landed on the ship's deck, before swinging the sword of judgment around. Kyuraka. She unleashed the combination of demon slaying and hellfire. She didn't hold back at all, and a historical figure-grade constellation caught off guard was killed off instantly, its incarnation body blowing up completely. Jiang Hui won scattering the bluish ghostly flames, and emitting pure white light looked utterly noble, virtuous. A portion of constellations like the sword and shield story. KKA Gagagak. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for her sword to be stopped. The culprit was a hand seemingly draped in a dreary black hue. A being cackling ominously had grabbed onto her sword before throwing her away in the air. She stepped on the air and spun around to land back on the deck safely. Before her stood constellations that already had created a battle formation. Kugagagugu. No, they were constellations. Looking at the accursed Stigma, you must be the incarnation of that archangel. You must have known that this was a trap, yet, how foolish, to think that you'd willingly step forward towards your own demise. They were completely enveloped in the pitch-black demonic aura, the beings that occupied the darkness within the skis of the starstream. Jiang Hui-Wan studied the 5 demon kings standing before her. This is a list of beings that you should be able to fight, as well as those you should never, Huey-1 SSI. Please, you must memorize their appearances no matter what. She desperately recalled the contents of Kim Dakya's explanation. The first demon king her eyes shifted over to was the creature holding a flaming spear and a head of a person. This guy is someone you can fight. If it's the current you, Huey-1 SSI, activating Hour of Judgment should suffice. The master of the 58th demon world, President of Flames, Amy TL, pronounced as Ami. As for this guy, it'll be fine. However, if he suddenly raises up his horn and pounces on you, things will get dangerous, so attack him first without hesitation. The master of the 48th demon world, golden-horned ox, Hagenti. It'll get dangerous from this guy onwards. When you're at your peak condition, and when you can fight one-on-one, only then try to fight it. The master of the 36th demon world, silver-clawed owl, Stolas. Judging from the leaking status, she could feel it. Up until this guy, she could somehow fight them. The problem was with the other two staring at her from behind the front three. First of all, the handsome demon king looking at her, wearing red armor and a limp in one leg. Honestly speaking, your chances of winning are slim when we enter the top 20s. If Uriel was to perform Advent of Half-God, then things might be different, but the master of the 16th demon world, demon king of seduction and infertility, Zepar. And from here onwards, you must unconditionally avoid these guys. She didn't need a reminder to understand it, the very last being at the back of the formation of the 5 demon kings, silently observing the unfolding situation. That was a being that the current her could never win against. The master of the 8th demon world, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, Barbados. The demon king with a cowboy-style hat and carrying a rifle was smiling at her through its cascading blonde hair. The tastiest despair is the impossible hope, indeed. Jiang Huiwan burned her fighting spirit and tightened her grip on the sword. She had already fought against demon kings. Back then, she was not in a condition to exhibit all of her abilities, but what would it be like now? Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment, is getting ready to activate. Her attribute was Judge of Evil. It was the power of the archangel that led the Valkyries in the past, great war of saints and demons. No matter how powerful her opponents were, she'd still not lose as long as they were evil. Unfortunately, majority of the absolute good-type constellations are opposing the activation of the skill. Skill activation has been cancelled. Barbados began laughing as if it already knew what was happening to her. How naive, oh, incarnation of Uriel. Do you still not understand what your current situation is? Kim Dakya said that this regional conflict was a trap. He said that, even if they knew, they still had to participate in it. Angels enjoy the concept of the sacrificial lamb, and it seems that you'll be it this time. The goal of Eden was to win the great war of saints and demons. And to achieve that goal, Kim Dakya Company must not exist. Whether Jiang Huiwan was good or evil, she was simply someone to dispose of from their perspective. She already knew all of that. That didn't mean it felt real to her even now, though. I don't know about other angels, but even Uriel betrayed me. I shall send you away peacefully. She heard Barbados's rifle being cocked. Just as she sensed the back of her neck suddenly grow cold, Jiang Huiwan threw herself outside the ship. Kualia. The bullet fired in the air tore through the fabric of time and space to puncture a black hole in the sky. Her hand gripping the sword trembled slightly. She was about to throw herself into a fight against such a monster just now. Regardless of what, you must never try to fight a demon king ranked 10th or higher one-on-one. You must run away without hesitation and wait for the rest of your companions to arrive. You must remember this. In any other normal circumstances, she'd have gone against his words. However, it was a different story right now. Hyunseong SSI. Hyunseong, busy smacking away the dark warriors to death at the front of the pack, looked up at her falling body. That quick exchange of their gazes was enough for him to figure out the current situation of the battle. The ridiculing voices of the demon kings resounded out. Ha 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 ha, you made a wise decision. Indeed, this battlefield is vast. However, how long will you be able to run away? A violent tempest of demonic aura raged on in the sky. The sword and the shield ran. It was impossible to fight against the enemies they couldn't even stand against, and they also couldn't afford to die here. Dakya SSI and Yu Yonghyok SSI will arrive soon. Let's hold out until then. Jiang Huiwan nodded her head. No matter how powerful their enemies were, as long as the company had gathered in one place, they should be able to overcome them. They had broken past battles even worse than this one before. Kim Dakya Company would not crumble in this place. The two of them took care of the injured reincarnators and continued to crush the advancing dark warriors while withdrawing their battle lines. Influence of your sponsor is weakening. To make matters worse, even Uriel's blessing had weakened. Her mind cooked up only the worst-case scenarios, but Jiang Huiwan shook her head to get rid of them. Most likely, Uriel must have been fighting in a different regional conflict. There was simply no way that her sponsor would betray her. A frenzied true voice of a demon king swept across the battlefield next. Get out of the way, trash. Reincarnators that lost their chance to run away were slaughtered in droves everywhere. The brave ones trying to fight back were the first to lose their heads, while those backing away in terror had their hearts pierced through. However, there were still some who could endure against the power of a demon king to put up a fight. Oh, a swordmaster, is it? You're a pretty good fighter. Someone was defending against Hagenti's golden horn. The ether blade coated this man's sword. The old man holding this weapon was someone Jiang Huiwan knew very well. Kyle Burrs. He was the top-ranked guardian knight that accompanied her during Kaiksenik's archipelago. Captain, it's been my honor to serve you. Actually, I'm too old to step into the outside world, but I sincerely wish that my measly strength can become at least some kind of aid to you in that place. Kyle fought well. He managed to deflect Hagenti's horn several times, and he even inflicted a small nick on the arm of the bovine demon king. But that was as far as he could go. The swordmaster's blade broke, and he went down on his knees. From the beginning, his opponent was not someone an aged swordmaster could fight against. His throat was captured, and he was lifted up like a toy. Character Erich Stryker is getting agitated. Erich's emotions rose up within Jiang Huiwan. At this rate, Kyle would die. Her thoughts moved lethargically. The names of Kim Dakya Company members brushed past her mind. The first one she thought of was Yu Yonghyok. Reincarnators will revive even if they die. He'd not have tried to save Kyle. The Isle of Reincarnators didn't permit death after all. One might lose their memories and become a different existence, but nevertheless, the soul would carry on. So, he'd let Kyle die for the sake of the bigger picture. The next one to pop up in her head was Kim Dakya. We should save him, but if you do that, you'll die instead, Huey1 SSI. Kim Dakya might say the right things, but because he was worried about her life, he'd turn a blind eye to Kyle's plight. Why are you in a dilemma? Use that guy to smack the demon king to death. Simple. Han Soo-young would say something similar to that. Well, she never was all that interested in saving people's lives from the beginning anyway. In order to end the absolute worst situation in the best possible circumstances, she directly aimed for the demon king's neck by now. And then, the dying Kyle's lips were mouthing the following words. Please run away. However, his eyes were saying something else. Please save me. Huey1 SSI. She heard Yi Hyun-seong's voice next. She and he were the most similar out of everyone in Kim Dakya Company. Sure, their personalities and adaptabilities might be different, but at least when it came to a certain type of situation, they would always come to the exact same decision. Exclusive skill, Hellfire LV-10 is activating. There was no need to even hesitate here, because they too were saved in the same manner in the past. Chapter 396, A Certain Heart 3. In that brief moment, the gazes of these two met each other. Everyone knows how to deal with demon kings, right? They carried the same pain, and they lived with the same hurt. They had lost people they cared about right before their eyes. Let begin the final scenario. They had failed to save their comrades many times over. And that was why they could never turn their backs on the people dying right in front of them. The lives they had lived so far made sure of that. "Let's go." Jiang Huiwen lightly jumped up and landed on Yehyunseong's hand, and he powerfully threw her forward. She flew like a streak of light and crossed the battlefield. The flames of hellfire drew a stylish arc in the air and shot forward, causing the demon king Hajenti to gasp out in pain. The creature quickly put out the fire that managed to slice apart a portion of its flesh and roared out viciously in reply. "So, that's where you've been hiding." Hajenti didn't dally any longer and dashed forward, while raising a thick cloud of dust. "Q-Waf." As Yehyunseong grabbed Hajenti's horn to start wrestle with the creature, Jiang Huiwen began shaking the unconscious Kyle. "Kyle, get a hold of yourself, Kyle." It was as if she had reverted back to being Erich Stryker. She desperately called out Kyle's name. She placed her hand near his nose and, much to her relief, found out that he hadn't died yet. "Let's try one more time with the scenario." These people came this far after they heard her voice and the words of Kim Dakya Company. They followed after her in order to find their own stories. That was why she simply couldn't let them die here. "Allow me to take him away." With good timing, guardian knights approached her, and one of them placed Kyle on his back. "I'll leave him to your care." "Please leave him to us." The knight nodded his head solemnly and quickly ran towards the back of the battlefield. She then grasped her sword tighter, planning to help Yehyunseong. But then, right at that moment, a chilling premonition tickled her entire figure. She had never felt such a thing before in her entire life. Not even when she was about to lose Kim Dakya in the Dark Castle. Not when she lost him one more time back in the 73rd Demon World. And then, "Huiwen-SSI, get down." At the same time, Yehyunseong bear-hugged her and rolled down on the ground. A thin ray of light brushed past her forearm. It was at that moment that she finally realized such a terrifying scream could come out of her own mouth. It was a bullet fired by Barbados. Yehyunseong's complexion had changed to pale blue. Even before she could ask him if he was all right, he spoke to her first. "You should evacuate first. I'll try to buy you some time." He stopped the advancing Hajenti with both of his hands, and he caught the burning spear thrown by Amy in the distance with his teeth. Even when subjected to the intense heat that melted his tongue and cooked his eyeballs, Yehyunseong endured it with nothing more than his unyielding, indomitable spirit. "Hurry!" He sent a voice projection, the skill that connected her to Yehyunseong when they were still stuck inside Kaiksenik's archipelago. With that very skill, he was talking to her. "I can still withstand this, but I won't be able to while trying to protect you as well." Back then or now, Yehyunseong always insisted that he could do things he couldn't possibly do. That was why Jiang Huiwen couldn't escape. She deflected the incoming silver-colored claws of Demon King Stolas and gritted her teeth. The flames of hellfire were progressively getting weaker, and cracks on Yehyunseong's carapace grew larger and more numerous. The Demon King of Seduction and Infertility, Zepar, laughed. "What a sad fate this is, but I do enjoy a tragedy like this." "Shut up." A few constellations are tearing up at the story of the incarnations. Jiang Huiwen desperately wielded her sword so that she could leave behind definite proof of their lives, not being some stories of entertainment for the others. Reincarnators running away watched their struggle. To save them, Jiang Huiwen and Yehyunseong fought. Influence of the nebula, Kim Dakya Company, is growing larger. Foundation of Great War of Saints and Demons is being rocked. For the first time ever, the Demon Kings basking in a relaxed air changed their expressions. "It's regretful that we can't enjoy this anymore." And for one more time, another blackish beam of light exploded forth. The bullet tore through space and flew forward. It was Barbados's speciality, Star Destruction Bullet. It couldn't be dodged this time. Jiang Huiwen crouched into a huddle, trying to minimize the potential area of damage, only for someone to cover her. Along with the sensation of a dull, heavy impact, she heard something exploding away. Blam! The bullet didn't end with just one. Blam! The first one, then the second, and another, Bullets fired one after the other blew up, broke, and destroyed something. Fable, purest comradeship, is getting agitated. Jiang Huiwen struggled desperately and hugged the person protecting her to roll around on the ground. It was a person's body, torn to bits by the bullets. A bloodied face was smiling towards her. He was saying something, but slowly, so slowly, he closed his eyes. Fable, Sword and Shield, has stopped its storytelling. Hyunseong SSI. Constellation, Master of Steel, has received great damage. Hyunseong SSI, please wake up. As if they had reached the intermission, the gunfires came to a halt just then. Something inside her head snapped in that moment. Jiang Huiwen shook Hyunseong one more time. Hyunseong SSI. He didn't open his eyes. His lips didn't say anything, and his nose didn't breathe anything out. His ears couldn't hear anything either. Get up. But she hadn't given him her answer yet. Get up already. And then the Demon Kings began moving again. Jiang Huiwen quickly hoisted Yi Hyunseong's large body up and ran, hard. She ran at the fastest speed she had ever produced before. She ran fast and hard enough that muscles in her legs tore up and her heart began straining itself. The gunfire soon resumed, and scars accumulated on her body. However, she still continued to run. She continued to escape from everything in this place. If it was Kim Dok-ya, if it was him, he should be able to save Yi Hyunseong. He saved Shin Yu-seung, and he also managed to save Yu Sang-ah too. So he'd be able to save Yi Hyunseong for sure. Death was nothing in this place. Death could not separate them. Jiang Huiwen ran as tears streamed down her face. Although it was nothing more than buying time, that time was critical in changing everything. So she ran, and she ran some more. How long did she run like that? Her vision grew blurrier and eventually she collapsed into a puddle of mud. The putrid stench of dead reincarnators filled up the landscape. There wasn't a drop of energy left in her body. As for Yi Hyunseong's heartbeat, she couldn't hear it anymore. Incarnation of Uriel, where are you hiding? She sensed the presence of demon kings approaching closer and held her breath. Whether it was due to luck or not, her current status had been broken to an unrecognizable degree right now, and it was difficult to differentiate her from the other reincarnators. If you don't want to come out, then well, we'll just kill the rest. Demon King Amy laughed and began swinging its flame spear. There were still many surviving reincarnators around her. They were people Jiang Huiwen should be saving. They were people she should have saved. She squeezed her eyes shut. I'm sorry. Her sense of righteousness could only extend this far. She heard the flames of explosions roaring on, and began picturing the scenes she'd see after opening her eyes again. The sights of the reincarnators being burnt to death, demolished and blown up, the faces of the dying filled with resentment towards her, their expressions as they pointed fingers at her while trying to run away. Jiang Huiwen prayed. She prayed that at least one more would manage to run away, even if it was only by a little further away, to endure until Kim Dok-ya arrived. Here she is. And then someone shouted out, I am Uriel's incarnation, Jiang Huiwen. She opened her eyes in a fluster. The person who said that was someone she knew very well. It was none other than Knight Kyle, the one she saved not too long ago. And next to him was the knight that carried the injured Kyle away. No, I'm Jiang Huiwen. No, it is I am she. Come and kill me instead. You bastards, have you all gone mad as a group? Reincarnators weren't running away. Those that came along with her from the Kaiksanix archipelago, those she managed to save during other regional conflicts, they were all standing by her side to shout at the top of their lungs. I'm Jiang Huiwen. I'm Yi Hyunseong. Reincarnators stood up and spoke her name, and Yi Hyunseong, as if it was theirs, even though they knew what would happen if they did. I'm Yu Young-hyuk. Everyone here was staring at their own death. I'm Kim Dok-ya. I'm Han Soo-young. They called out the names of their saviors, the names of Kim Dok-ya Company. I'm Jiang Huiwen. As if this was the righteousness they all decided to adhere to, or as if to become the gods that would save them in turn instead. Yuea. After crying out her name, Kyle began dashing towards the nearest demon king. Reincarnators running away in the opposite direction were now coming back. Some were in tears, some were in a rage, while some were in despair. Influence of Kim Dokya Company in the applicable scenario is strengthening even further. The demon kings became flustered and began unleashing their statuses. How dare these insane fools! Reincarnators were being ripped to shreds right before her eyes. They couldn't even endure a light nudge from a demon king. Even then, they didn't stop shouting out. Some cried out Jiang Huiwan's name, while some, Yihyun Xiang's. Some called out Kim Dokya's name while flinging themselves into the embrace of death. Trapped within this battlefield of complete pandemonium, Jiang Huiwan began shuddering. Why were they being killed off like this? She looked at the collapsed Yihyun Xiang below, before casting her glare up at the darkened skis of the star stream. Countless stars were looking down at her. Even though there were so many sparkling stars up there, not one came down to help her. Jiang Huiwan rose up from her spot. Lie. And then she ran towards the demon kings. I am Jiang Huiwan. So that's where you were. Claws flew in and scratched her back before going away. You have requested the activation of the exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment. Even if it's just this once, doesn't matter who it is, as long as they can lend me their strength. Majority of the absolute good type constellations are opposing the activation of the skill. Skill activation has been cancelled. Why couldn't those she desperately wanted to be judged? What was good and what was evil then? What rubbish is this absolute crap? Why are you arbitrarily deciding on that? And why am I supposed to abide by it? Barbados's bullet flew in. Her worn-down emotions became the kindling that began burning fiercely. All of your fables are reacting to your misfortune. Every single one of her emotions was now pointing towards just one. All of your fables are reacting to your will. And that was revenge. Starstream is now looking at your fable. I wish to judge them all. New fable is germinating within you. In the next moment, powerful rays of light exploded out from her entire body. The enormous explosion of light forced the trajectory of star destruction bullet off course, and at the same time, the demon kings in the near vicinity were pushed back as well. Jiang Huiwan then heard the messages entering her ear. Evolution of Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan's attribute is approaching. Opportunity to evolve your attribute has come. The one who shrunk away, once upon a time became Judge of Evil, in order to pass judgment on all the evils she encountered. In that case, what would happen to the judge who was betrayed by good? You have acquired a legendary attribute. An aura of brilliant white light exploded out from her sword. The boiling, overflowing energy of the fable was released from her entire figure. And then, the ring of chaos materialized within Jiang Huiwan's eyes as she took in the sight of the demon kings. You have become Judge of Apocalypse. Chapter 397, Episode 75, A Certain Heart 4. Skills are evolving due to attributes evolution. Exclusive skill, Demon Slaying, is evolving to God Slaying. Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgments, activation criteria is being modified. Jiang Huiwan looked down at both of her hands, currently covered in the blinding aura. One hand was dyed in the pure white light, while the other pitch black. Isle of Reincarnators is looking at you. The ones cheering her on were no longer the constellations. Inhabitants of Isle of Reincarnators are looking at you. No, it was people she had protected until now. Demon kings began glaring at Jiang Huiwan in utter disbelief. Her attribute has evolved. Not bad. I see that the scenario has bestowed its grace unto you. However, they didn't seem to be panicking. No matter what, Jiang Huiwan was still an incarnation, someone who couldn't borrow Uriel's powers or the blessings of Eden. But regardless of all that, she still took a step towards the demon kings. Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment, is activating. Hajenti caught on to what she was trying to do and began laughing in derision. You still haven't wisened up yet. Doesn't matter what your attribute evolves into, the archangels will never lend their powers to you. Skill Hour of Judgment. Needed to borrow probability from the absolute good, so without the permission of the applicable constellations, it could not be used. However, a string of strange messages suddenly popped out of nowhere. Hour of Judgment no longer requires the consent of the constellations on the side of absolute good. Hour of Judgment no longer needs to borrow probability from the nebulas on the side of absolute good. Constellations on the side of absolute good are greatly flustered by Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan's change. I don't need to get their stupid consent anymore, said Jiang Huiwan, now neither good nor evil. We decide who will be judged from now on. Sparks danced wildly around her figure as she gripped the sword of judgment. Demon King Hajenti took several steps back, almost reflexively, after sensing her suspicious aura. What is this? Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment, is receiving the blessing of Kim Dokya Company. Voting rights have been distributed to the members of Kim Dokya Company. A portion of the members are unable to participate in the voting. Only the members that can will participate in the voting. And then the voting began. Incarnation, Yi Jai agrees with the judgment. Incarnation, Shin Yu-seung agrees with the judgment. Incarnation, Yi Gil-yong agrees with the judgment. Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan agrees with the judgment. All members able to participate have agreed with your judgment. Jiang Huiwan looked at the collapsed Yi Hyun-seong. At his cold, unmoving body, this judgment would be for him. Su-judjajut. Hour of Judgment has activated. Activation time will be curtailed due to an insufficient number of members participating in the vote. Your physical abilities will transcend the scenario's probability for the next 4 minutes. All of your fables will transcend the scenario's probability for the next 4 minutes. And her blade moved, with a speed that not even demon kings could catch, in order to judge the ones she desperately wanted to judge. At that moment, she thought that everything besides her had come to a standstill. They referred to themselves as stars, with such low speed. Hajenti was blinking its eyes in sheer disbelief. An enormous amount of probability was spent, and sparks exploded forth in the air, perhaps to provide proof of Jiang Huiwan having judged something at this very moment. Kiak. Hajenti's heart, cut out from its body, was now palpitating on top of the blade of the sword of judgment. Jiang Huiwan was bathed in the spray of the dying demon king's blood. She slowly opened her lips. None of you will return alive. She was given 4 minutes, but that was plenty enough time for her. Hajenti's head flew off along with the rising fountain of blood. Demon King, Golden-Horned Ox has died. Demon King, Golden-Horned Ox, has been defeated in the regional conflict. The President of Flames, Amy, muttered in sheer astonishment, Hajenti. She exhibited the power capable of killing the 48th ranked Demon King in one hit. No Demon King alive had seen such a feat achieved by a measly little incarnation until now. But such insane probability can't be allowed. Demon Kings now found themselves in the pit of sheer shock and couldn't shut their slack jaws. A tragedy for one side would become a farce for the other. Reincarnators had been forced back by the overwhelming might of the Demon Kings until then. But now, they began throwing themselves at the miracle taking place right before their eyes. Let's go. We can win this. Let's join forces. Protect Jiang Huiwan Nim. Demon Kings watched the reincarnators rushing towards them and roared out in anger. Jiang Huiwan had vanished from her spot by then. She reappeared like it was some sort of magic, and the afterimage of her blade shattered Amy's spear. Krayek. The Demon King witnessed its spear of flames that couldn't be broken by any known object shatter into pieces, and its eyes shot wide open. And along with its wide-open eyes, Amy's world came to a crashing end with another single attack. Demon King, President of Flames, has died. Demon King, President of Flames, has been defeated in the regional conflict. It was an obvious result. Even the 48th ranked Hajenti had died in a single hit, so there was no way that the lower-ranked Amy could withstand Jiang Huiwan at this stage. The vigor of the Reincarnator's soared even higher, and the fighting spirit seething within the battlefield climbed higher as well. Wuang Wuang! Jiang Huiwan ran forward while fighting against the pain severe enough to seemingly burn her eyes. She cut down the pouncing dark warriors, and then cut some more for the sole aim of taking yet another Demon King's head. Oh, Incarnation, you're truly naive. You're simply borrowing the strength of a single nebula, are you not? The master of the 36th demon world, the owl with silver-colored claws, Stolas, might have lacked noticeable combat prowess, but it was still one of the demon kings possessing a great pool of knowledge. It had caught the presence of the ring of chaos within Jiang Huiwan's eyes and cried out loudly, "That is the power of chaos, a power that is neither good nor evil, birthed from the beginning of everything and originates from outside the scenarios. If you use that power..." "Shut up!" Jiang Huiwan jumped up and ripped Stolas' wings off. The owl demon king screeched in pain, and its silver-colored claws pierced into her thighs and shoulders. Torn flesh flung into the air as the attack that disregarded her own safety continued on. Broken fables sprayed onto the ground like real blood. However, she paid no heed and wielded her sword. She swung it again and again, regardless of whether her innards spilt out or her cheeks were gouged out. Her thoughts were dominated by the singular mission of shattering the head of the Demon King before her and to end its life for good. And so, after the blink of an eye where she swung her sword around 50 or so times, the head of a dead owl could be found in her grip. Demon King, owl with silver-colored claws, has died. Demon King, owl with silver-colored claws, has been defeated in the regional conflict. Panta. She had displayed the combat power capable of slaying 3 demon kings all by herself. Many constellations are astonished by Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan's strength. Constellations on the side of absolute good find Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan, to be ominous and unsettling. Constellations on the side of absolute evil are scared of Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan. Stars of good and evil had divided the sky, and beyond the divide there were other gazes looking at her. They belonged to those beings that didn't hold any prior interest in her. Outer gods are paying attention to Incarnation, Jiang Huiwan. As she was bathed by the numerous gazes of the stars above, Jiang Huiwan continued to move forward. There were currently 2 demon kings remaining. "My apologies, but I don't enjoy such a situation, so farewell." Those words belonged to a certain demon king, who had been reciting a lengthy incantation the moment Jiang Huiwan had gone through her awakening. Demon King of seduction and infertility, is leaving the regional conflict after paying an enormous amount of probability. She belatedly threw her blade at the creature, but the Demon King of seduction and infertility, Zepar, had already vanished from the spot by then. She gnashed her teeth and shifted her gaze into the sky. Now only one Demon King remained. The supposed master of the 16th demon world, running away with his tails between his legs because of a mere incarnation. How shameful. It was the Demon King who murdered Yihyeon-seong, the master of the 8th demon world, the merciless hunter against the will of heavens, Barbados. Even when it had witnessed Jiang Huiwan's abnormal feats, Barbados didn't try to escape. Demon King, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, is unleashing its status. Barbados was actually able to match Jiang Huiwan's speed with Hour of Judgment still active. It chose its actions just as quickly as her, and could attack at the same time as her, too. It fought in an unbelievably skillful and destructive manner. Jiang Huiwan was getting pushed back little by little. As if it was enjoying this, Barbados laughed out. "Your fable is destructively beautiful." As the fight wore on, Jiang Huiwan gradually realized how truly strong Barbados was. The Demon King hadn't been going all out until now. This was the difference between one's spent lifetime, something she couldn't hope to catch up to, no matter what. Blood poured out from her punctured side. She used the flames of hellfire to singe the wound. Barbados didn't miss this opening and kicked her in the stomach. She vomited out a mouthful of blood and managed to barely force herself back up. 1 minute of hour of judgment, activation time remaining. Jiang Huiyuan fixed her grip on the sword, her hand now showing the bones underneath the skin. Is it impossible with the amount of time I've lived so far? Blessing from Kim Dokya Company has strengthened. Something began granting additional power to her in that state. Great fable, Kaiksenix Archipelago is looking at you. It was the history she lived in. Constellation, Master of Steel is looking at you. They were the ones who loved the same thing as her. Clang! Jiang Huiyuan held the sword with both of her hands and defended against Barbados's bayonet attacks. Bayonet fighting, a man she knew was also proficient in it. You usually yell out louder and louder the harder it gets in the military. After I yell out every morning, I get that feeling that I will be able to endure the rest of the day somehow. Jiang Huiyuan yelled out exactly like Yehyunseong. Barbados's bayonet pierced into her waist, but she gripped the weapon tighter so that it wouldn't get pulled out. Along with the sound, poo-ook, the bayonet penetrated even deeper into her waist. Even then, she took another step forward. Even I start things without a plan sometimes. It's not like I've calculated everything beforehand, you know. She summoned forth her courage like Kim Dokya, and you shouldn't be wielding it like that, and swung her sword exactly like Yu Young-hyuk. Slice. Sword of Judgment, sliced into a part of Barbados's forearm. Wow. The Demon King saw the fragments of fables dyed in crimson hue explode forth, and its brows quivered greatly. In that moment, she thought she could hear Han Suyong's laughter. You know this too, right? The last one to laugh is the winner. Jiang Huiyuan spoke, exactly like how Ha Suyong would have done. If you want my bones, I shall give them to you. If you want my heart, then I will gladly hand it over. Her attitude of not caring about what kind of attacks her body had received. Her method of fighting, solely focused on destroying her opponent. However, you will have to risk half of all your fables. All facets of the fables she had pushed to their absolute limits began glowing brightly now. Barbados fell into a fluster and backed away while firing a barrage of star destruction bullets. However, she easily evaded them all. The bullets simply couldn't match her speed as she grew faster and faster. The storm of probabilities aftermath was slowly rushing in to arrest her entire body. Her hair began to turn snow-white, the price to pay for exceeding her own status. Even then, she didn't back down. All she wished for was to kill this Demon King. Jiang Huiyuan's blade flashed like a ray of light and sliced Barbados's left wrist off. It couldn't hold onto its rifle anymore, and the Demon King spat out a pained groan. It then quickly hopped onto the deck of the battleship it brought to the battlefield earlier. I shall destroy you. I won't even leave behind any trace of you. Barbados's battleship began advancing forward as it emitted chilling blue light. Jiang Huiyuan watched all this unfold as a smile floated up onto her lips. The fact that it judged fighting her without borrowing the power of that fable weapon was impossible. Now that was exactly the same as admitting its own defeat. The Demon King must have realized it as well, because rage was filling up its expression now. Be gone! Jiang Huiyuan stabbed her sword into the ground and stood tall. If it was possible, she'd like to destroy that ship too. Activation duration of Hour of Judgment has ended. Unfortunately, she no longer had any time left. The battleship's eagle statue died in the greenish hue, and its cannons began spitting out flames next, seemingly with enough might to sweep away the entirety of this regional conflict region. Jiang Huiyuan pulled Yehyunseong's sagging body closer and hugged it. Yehyunseong SSI. I really did my best. I don't have a single regret left now. I was not wrong. Even if my scenario comes to an end in this place. I have lived this moment the way it's supposed to be. The once lethargic perception speed gradually reverted back to how it was. She didn't turn her gaze away from the battlefield and continued to stare at the magic shells raining down. Sadly, though, her vision continued to grow fuzzier and she couldn't see. Without a doubt, she had poured everything out, yet why were tears coming out only now? As her vision grew blurrier, she began crying in great indignation. How could she not have any regrets? Why is everyone from our nebula like this? Someone suddenly spoke out in a loud, ringing voice. Constellation, maritime war god, is furious. Jiang Huiwan was stunned by the indirect message coming from a familiar constellation and quickly wiped her eyes away. Since she hadn't closed them, she was able to see the miracle taking place right before her. Kugugugugu, a battleship even larger than Barbados, was now dominating the entire sky above the battlefield. Someone has joined the 117th regional conflict. The ship had a turtle-like back made out of futuristic metal, and 3 people she loved so much were riding on top of its figurehead. Kuwea. With excellent timing, Barbados's bullet flew in. Jiang Huiwan reached out with her hand in great urgency and called out, "Avoid it!" Her cries were buried under the loud cannon fires. She plopped down to the ground as the ripples from the explosion swallowed up the whole battlefield. On the spot where the thick smoke dissipated, the battleship stood proudly with nary a single scratch. Influence of Kim Dokya Company in the applicable scenario has strengthened even further. Yijai Hai and the kids revealed themselves as the smoke of the battlefield abated. With a perfectly still expression, Yijai Hai raised her sword. Load the cannons. Chapter 398, A Certain Heart 5. The Demon King and its stunned expression could be seen in the distance. The hull of the ship was unscathed, even after getting struck by the star destruction bullet fired by Barbados. The bullet capable of erasing even a star couldn't penetrate past that turtle-like back shell. Incarnation, Yijai Hai, has begun her command. Incarnation, Yijai Hai, has activated Stigma Ghost Fleet LV-10. A ghostly armada of 12 ships used the approaching dark warriors as the waves and floated up. Soon after, their cannons began firing in unison. Barbados gnashed its teeth at the sudden barrage of cannon fire. You dare, with such measly little. The Demon King's own battleship, Nighthawk, was truly sturdy. Although it wasn't assembled with futuristic cutting-edge technology, still, it was a weapon created by painstakingly gathering fables of the demon world. Ghost Fleet alone was insufficient to deal with this enemy. However, Yijai Hai didn't panic. No, she simply observed her enemy with a calm, composed expression. Kugugugu. As the Ghost Fleet continued its barrage, the reddish light was gathered in the dragon-like figurehead of the ship covering the sky. Great Fable, Next City, has begun its storytelling. Jiang Huiwan looked up at Yijai Hai's current appearance. She had no way of knowing how the latter managed to come here, or what sort of a worldview she had experienced. The one thing she was certain of, though, was the knowledge that the trio of kids managed to survive something just as harsh as the tragedy she had to live through in the Keixenix archipelago. A ship built upon crude fables dares to. Barbados's side finished charging up its attack first and fired it. Kuwea. The force behind the shot was at least double that of the previous attack. No matter how strong Yijai Hai's battleship was, it wouldn't be easy to defend against this particular star destruction bullet. 4-5 ships at the front of the Ghost Fleet couldn't endure against the magical energy behind the attack and were extinguished immediately. Even then, Yijai Hai calmly waited, until that cannon shell moving at a slow but assured speed reached right in front of her nose. Just a little bit more, a bit more. Constellation, maritime war god, is looking at his incarnation. Fragments of fables scattering in the air brushed past her cheeks. And just before the fable of Ghost Fleet, being destroyed one after the other, could reach her and her 2 companions like a wall of white bubbles. Yijai Hai lowered her sword. Fire! Everywhere was seemingly dyed in bright light. Violent, vicious rebound rocked the hull. Strong winds wildly whipped her already undone hair about. The fable's energy shooting out from the dragon head swept absolutely everything away in the vicinity. The star destruction bullet, dyeing its surroundings in darkness, had been extinguished already. Many constellations are suspicious of the applicable fable weapon's probability. The fable weapon, Turtle Dragon. That was the name of the weapon that the maritime war god had commissioned when he came to visit the next city a long time ago, but didn't have the chance to collect it yet. Many constellations can't close their jaws due to their great shock. Accompanied by a loud explosion, the sounds of something being destroyed could be heard, along with a demon king's horrible scream. Yijai issued another order, fire. Her voice didn't waver in the slightest, as if to spit out all of her accumulated grievances. The ghost fleet re-emerged and began their simultaneous bombardment once more, while the turtle dragon's main cannon also spat out another round as well. Fire. Everything on the opposing side of the battlefield was gradually disappearing. Barbatos's battleship, the Dark Warriors, everything. All those hopping to convert Jiang Huiwan's and Yi Hyunseong's story to a tragedy were now the subjects of Yijai's wrath. "Our fables aren't for your entertainment," she said. She wobbled slightly as the shelling continued on. However, she never faltered once. She was no longer that girl who feared the ocean, but a commander of this vessel. Fire. Qa. Under the explosions of the energy created by the cannon barrage, Barbatos's status was steadily being erased. And until every single one of the Demon King's fables were completely gone, Yijai didn't let up with the bombardment, and ordered their firing again and again. Jiang Huiwan looked up at that spectacle. That girl was clearly straining herself. Tsujujujut. Sparks now filled up the battlefield. Two kids broke past the continuous chain of explosions and landed on the ground. They were Shin Yuseung and Yi Gilyong. Huiwan Unni, are you all right? Nuna. Aided by the kids, Jiang Huiwan carried Yi Hyunseong to the battleship and approached Yi Jai at the deck, still commanding the bombardment. Jaiya, Constellation, maritime war god, is exhausting his remaining energy right down to his limit. Their opponent was a top-ranking demon king. Even if they acquired a fable weapon, even if they borrowed the probability of Kim Dokya Company, and even after the fable-grade constellation, maritime war god had come to help, a price had to be paid in order to create a miracle like this. Jaiya, it's okay now. Jiang Huiwan knew why Yijai was so furious right now. The moment she stepped into the battlefield, she had figured out what happened here, and that was why she didn't hold back at all. Ghost Fleet is returning. The scenario messages could be heard coming from the distance. Demon King, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, has died. Demon King, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, has been defeated in the regional conflict. It was a truly splendid feat, achieved by only 3 incarnations. A Demon King ranked 8th in the rankings, as well as 3 others, had lost their lives in this battlefield. Indirect messages continued to stream in among the outpouring of cheers from the reincarnators. Constellations leaning towards absolute evil can't take their eyes away from this unbelievable feat. Constellations leaning towards absolute good are forming complicated expressions. Neutral-leaning constellations are cheering on at this impossible battle. Many constellations are paying the cost of the impossible scenario. A big player in the sponsorship community has sponsored a large amount of coins. 100,000 coins have been sponsored. Yijai wiped away the blood trickling down from her nose and smiled brightly. Even though she was smiling, she was crying too. Unni. 117th Regional Conflict has concluded. Reward calculation for the 117th Regional Conflict has commenced. Victors and losers exist in the 117th Regional Conflict. Jiang Huiwan stared up at those messages with dazed eyes. Good has won in the applicable regional conflict. Current state of Great War's progress. Absolute good points, 68. Absolute evil points, 67. Chaos points, 70. The 117th regional conflict didn't end in the way Kim Dokya Company had planned. Well, Yijai belatedly joining the battle didn't know of the plans their nebula had for the Great War of Saints and Demons. That was why. However, it wasn't as if their plan had completely failed, either. Power of Chaos intervened in the applicable battlefield. Chaos points have increased by 5. Chaos points have reached 75. Chaos points, rate of increase is speeding up. Shadowy outer gods are calling out to Incarnation, Jiang Hui 1. Foreign gods beyond the galaxy are paying attention to Incarnation, Jiang Hui 1's status. Jiang Hui 1 looked at the infinity symbol that had appeared on the backs of her hands. She acquired them after awakening the new attribute, Judge of Apocalypse. Kim Dakya hadn't told her about this marking before. Hyunseong Hyung. The eyes of Ye Gil-yong checking for the sagging Ye Hyunseong's pulse grew wider. Shin Yuseung was taken by surprise too, and hurriedly pressed her ear to the unmoving man's chest. Jiang Hui-1 watched them and spoke in a suffering tone of voice. Hyunseong SSI is dead. She couldn't finish her sentence, however, because she thought that it'd become reality if she ended up saying it. All regional conflicts have come to an end. Scenario: chaos points have increased too much, and the main scenario has been updated. Scenario jump has occurred. Link scenario has been generated. They weren't even given enough time to grieve. In the world of the star stream, the scenario would never look back to the past. That was why. New main scenario has arrived. Main scenario 84, Great War of Saints and Demons. Type main. Difficulty indeterminable. Clear condition: someone who's neither absolute good nor absolute evil has made the good evil of the battlefield unclear. The most ancient good and the most ancient evil wish for a definite conclusion. They have agreed to decide the outcome on one great battlefield. If you wish to see the end of a great fable, you must immediately join the great battlefield. Time limit. Reward: Great Fable related Great War of Saints and Demons. Failure death. The great battlefield of the Great War of Saints and Demons is opening up. Victor of this great battlefield will acquire 30 good evil points. What's this? Just as Yi Jai muttered out in confusion, the regional conflict zone was rocked by a dull, heavy tremor. The voice of a Dakibai could be heard within the wild explosion of sparks going, Tsu Chuchat. You must have been bored stiff by being confined to small battlefields, haven't you? The real Great War of Saints and Demons will start from now on. The time and space torn asunder by the heavens and earth, violently convulsing, began coalescing back into one. By the time they opened their eyes, Jiang Hui-1 and the kids found themselves standing on a seemingly endless vast plain. The skies were dark and gloomy, while the reddish ground was filled by the fable fragments and broken skulls of angels and demons that had rotted away a long time ago. This very location was where the final battle of the first Great War of Saints and Demons took place. Constellations and incarnations participating in other regional conflicts began gathering here. Nebula Papyrus has joined the great battlefield. Nebula Tamna has joined the great battlefield. Nebula Hongik has joined the great battlefield. Nebula Guardian Tree has joined the great battlefield. Hey Shin Yuseung over there. It'll be fine, we leveled up plenty, didn't we? Great Fable Next City is protecting the children. The gathered status was so great that just by standing in this field made their spirits falter. Jiang Hui-1 couldn't even begin to fathom just how many constellations were participating in this great battle. A great number of constellations are showing animosity towards Kim Dakya Company. Gazes that had actual form behind them could become dangerous. Jiang Hui-1 stood at the front of the group even though it was hard to steady herself. She was from Kim Dakya Company, and that was why she couldn't display any weakness in front of those nebulas. Just as another wave of enormous status was rushing towards her. Jiang Hui won. Someone supported her from her back. Incarnation Han Su-yong has joined the battlefield. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is threatening the constellations of this great battlefield. You really look terrible, and what's the matter with your hair? I don't think you're in any position to talk about someone else. Jiang Hui-wan smiled dryly, causing Han Su-yong and her soot-covered face to shoot back a glare. The former then saw the constellation following behind the latter. Uriel. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking at her incarnation. Uriel, full of wounds, was looking back at Jiang Hui-wan. There were faint traces of turbid aura around her wings. The latter saw that and almost immediately felt relieved for some reason. Uriel hadn't betrayed her. Only a brief exchange of glances was enough to know that. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is. It's all right, Uriel. The archangel closed her mouth shut. Jiang Hui-wan quietly observed her sponsor for a little while longer before casting her gaze lower to the ground. They were a constellation and an incarnation. They didn't need to say something to understand what was on each other's minds. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is closing her eyes in pain. A humongous gate opened up on the other side of the battlefield. Its size was on another scale compared to the ones before. Nebula Eden has joined the great battlefield. Archangels and Valkyries entered the battlefield as the golden-colored horns blew noisily. Constellation, guardian of youth and travel, is looking at Incarnation, Jiang Hui-wan. Constellation, friend of justice and harmony, is sympathizing with Incarnation, Jiang Hui-wan. Constellation, lily blooming on Aquarius, finds it unfortunate what happened with Incarnation, Jiang Hui-wan. ED. Lily pin of Aquarius, lily blooming on Aquarius. TL says pin is a generalized Korean term to denote a flower blooming on something somewhere, but it was previously TL'd as if it was an actual pin. At that moment, Jiang Hui-wan's irises, cast down to the ground, began blazing once more. Sympathy. Utterly disgusting. If only you people consented to the hour of judgment earlier, if only. Constellation, scribe of heaven, has entered the great battlefield. The leader of Eden made his entrance under the brilliant, blinding light show. Jiang Hui-wan squeezed the sword of judgment tight and glared at Metatron. As if they were waiting for this moment, the others began making their entrance from the opposing gate. Demon King, ruler of East Hell, has joined the great battlefield. It was the great Demon King Agars, second in the rankings, as well as other Demon Kings. Demon King, Black Mane Lion, has joined the great battlefield. Demon King, Immeasurable Austerity, has joined the great battlefield. Demon King, Devil of Lust and Wrath, has joined the great battlefield. The top-ranked Demon Kings didn't cower one bit from the auras of the archangels. As their numbers increased, the complexions of Jiang Hui-wan and the kids got poorer. Only then did they realize what kind of a battlefield this was. They also realized what kind of nebulas they were about to face off against. And finally, how small Kim Dakya Company actually was. Constellations and demon kings of the great battlefield are glaring at Kim Dakya Company. There were countless strong enemies present. As the threatening, intimidating auras of the constellations aimed at Kim Dakya Company bore down on them, the members heard their own breathing become heavier and quicker. Nebula Asgard has joined the great battlefield. Incarnation, Anna Croft, has joined the great battlefield. Jiang Hui-wan flinched and took a look behind to find Anna Croft looking at her with both of her hands in the air. No need to be that wary. I'm not your enemy right now. Just before she could ask what those words meant. Incarnation, Yu Young-hyuk, has joined the great battlefield. A corner of the sky seemed to collapse, and a man wearing a black coat made his entrance. He proudly stood tall. The viciously screeching edges of the dark heavenly demon sword bared its fangs at the constellations. The ends of Han Suyong's lips twitched as she made her comment. Again, you're acting like the MC again. Master. It was only one person, yet the atmosphere of the battlefield seemed to change simply from his appearance. Yu Yonghyuk scanned the companions and spoke. With the exception of one fool, everyone's here. No, everyone is here now. That last voice belonged to the one they were all waiting for. Jiang Huiwan didn't know what to do with the emotions suddenly welling up inside her, but still shifted her gaze over in his direction. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to tell him what those bastards of constellations did in this place, but I know Huiwan SSI. Kim Dakya, kitted out in his white coat, was silently looking at Yi Hyunseong on the ground. Demon King of Salvation, has joined the great battlefield. Chapter 399, Episode 76, Book of Revelation 1. Kagagugu. Inside the screen, constellations of good and evil were emitting scary auras towards each other. The taut tension was stretched firm like a rubber band, ready to snap at any given moment. And it was the smallest, but also bright, nebula that managed to maintain the balance. It's been truly a long time since I last saw everyone from good and evil gather in one place. The guardian of the mandala, Sakyamuni, was looking at the screen with an unreadable expression on his face. Ancient memories were flowing within his irises. The scenario before the scenarios, the era when good, evil, and the keepers of neutrality were working together. The tale of everyone working together to fight the dragon of apocalypse in order to prevent the advent of the apocalypse itself. I'd also like to help my companions. Sakyamuni heard that voice and shifted his gaze towards a small cistern. A small ball of soul glowing faintly was speaking to him while hovering inside the tank. When will I be able to reincarnate? That place isn't your battlefield, oh dear child. You shall reincarnate as a being born to carry out an even greater purpose. They are my purpose. Even after becoming a soul, Yu Sangha's voice remained resolute. If I don't get to save them in that place, then my reincarnation will have no meaning. Meaning is it? Sakyamuni shifted his gaze again, this time to another cistern located on the opposite side of Yu Sangha's. There was a female incarnation body wearing a Buddhist robe inside this one. You shall be entering the body of a child that I cared about. I'll enter someone else's body, but I thought I was going to reincarnate. You'll reincarnate with that body as your incarnation body. But what about the original owner of that body? Sakyamuni didn't reply. Would Buddha feel sorrow as well? Yu Sangha realized something in that moment. Is that person your meaning? Without saying anything, Sakyamuni continued to observe the Buddhist robe-wearing woman inside the cistern. She has returned to the providence of the cosmos, that is all. Everything is simply an empty revolution of the wheel. Is that really how you feel? You cared about her greatly, yes. You shall understand it soon enough, child. Becoming a reincarnator is precisely that, after all. I'm not a reincarnator yet. You'll soon realize that there is no meaning in being bound by such shackles, and how everything you held dear was simply an exercise in futility. Is jinxing someone else your hobby? I only speak of the truth, dear child. Sakyamuni looked at the battlefield inside the screen once more. Constellations that had lived for a very long time were in there. Constellations suffer from insomnia for all of their lives. They can't fall asleep without the scenarios, and even when they dream, they still ingurgitate the fables of others. Through this greedy devouring, they wish to erase the scenarios they find themselves in, and they feel anxious all the time, even though they don't understand why they feel that way. The most ancient constellation among all of them, Sakyamuni, continue to speak. As if they are stuck in the eternal daydream, they can't escape from the scenario. They look away from death, so they don't know its true meaning. And because they don't know death, they can't wake up from the scenario's illusion. They all mistakenly believe that there is one story somewhere that might save them. Constellations either sponsoring Kim Dakya Company or being hostile towards them were sending indirect messages inside the screen. Sakyamuni slowly moved its gaze towards the middle of that busy screen. However, reincarnators are different. That was where the reincarnators from this island could be found. They had followed after Kim Dakya Company, and they were still being forced to slave under the great fable after joining the side of either good or evil. Sakyamuni looked at them and spoke. Reincarnators will live on forever like constellations, but they must die and be reborn again. They know what it means to awaken since they understand death, and because they know the meaning of awakening, they also come to realize that they are simply a cog in the scenario's machination. Reincarnation is to comprehend the scenario's true essence. Reincarnators with low status will lose their memories along with their death, but that was not the case for everyone. There were some who retained their former memories, like Nirvana, when they reincarnated. They would reincarnate into various species and various genders and continue on with the scenario. As a human, as a toad, as an orc, as an elf, as an ant. Most likely, they acquired those expressions after experiencing countless reincarnations. They all seem to have resigned themselves. That's because they understand nothing will change, regardless of who wins. Scenarios can be changed. That's what we have been doing so far. However, that hasn't changed the fact that it's still a scenario. So, you must give up now. Because, no matter what you do, the scenario will remain as a scenario. That's just you trying to run away. That's the same as conceding defeat without even fighting first. Oh, dear child, you're now insulting the lives of the reincarnators. They have continuously fought against scenarios through their countless lives. Have you ever fought with everything on the line, not giving up on a single lifetime in the process? Sakyamuni shut his mouth after hearing that question. Not giving up on a single lifetime, she said. Before he could reply, though, Yu Sanga spoke first. There is a person who hadn't given up on his life, even if it went past 1,800 times. Yu Sanga looked at the screen. There was a man wearing a black coat within it. There's another person who had lived that life alongside him, too. And then, a man wearing a white coat standing next to him was observing his companions. His gaze stopped last at Yi Hyunseong collapsed on the floor. This body has experienced a far too extensive period of time to count the numbers. However, there is one number that I can still count. Sakyamuni continued on as he looked at Yi Hyunseong. One more will be added to this island's reincarnators. Not yet. I felt for the unmoving Yi Hyunseong's pulse. It wasn't beating. He wasn't breathing either, and only whites could be seen after his eyelids were opened. Really? Jiang Huiwan looked at me, with a face of someone wanting to believe in miracles. I looked at her whitened hair and guessed what had happened here. For sure he's not dead. My companions all carried complicated expressions. Yi Jaihai seemed to think that I was lying out of good intentions, while Gilyong looked as if he'd believe me even if I was really lying. Han Suyong asked me, have you decided to change the definition of death now? If Hyunseong SSI has died for real, then the Master of Steel would have been kicked out of the scenario too. I looked up into the sky. Although I couldn't hear any indirect messages to that effect, the Master of Steel hadn't been ejected out of this scenario. Jiang Huiwan urgently grabbed my arm. Then, why Hyunseong SSI is? Just like how you've awakened, Hyunseong SSI has also awakened, Huiwan SSI. I shifted my gaze down to the faint fragments of a fable flowing on Yi Hyunseong's skin, the fable of steel. It was not visible from the outside, but his inside should be filled to the brim with the fable of steel by now. Character Yi Hyunseong is on the verge of attribute evolution. It was not for nothing that Yi Hyunseong was referred to as the greatest shield in the original story. Protecting someone by sacrificing himself would let the Emperor of Steel Sword to reach the final stage of the steel transformation. By the time he regains his consciousness, he should have become the world's sturdiest shield. Jiang Huiwan asked me in a trembling voice. In that case, he's still alive. Yes. Is that the truth? You're not lying. Tears trickled down her collapsed cheeks. She then placed her hand on Yi Hyunseong's chest. His heart wasn't beating. While feeling that indifferent silence, she spoke again in some difficulty. But I can't hear anything. It'll be like that from now on. Pardon. I looked at Yehyun again. His heart had hardened like steel, boasting a 100% purity rating. It'd never beat again. The current Jiang Huiwan wouldn't be able to understand what that meant, though. However, Hyunseong SSI is definitely alive, so please don't worry. In any case, he won't be of any use to us now, said Yu Young-hyuk indifferently as he unleashed his status. Every one of you, keep your wits about you. This isn't the time to wallow in sadness. Kagagugu. Two camps glaring at our nebula could be seen on the other side of the battlefield. One camp was good, while the other, evil. To us, they were simply enemies, though. The centers of those two camps were manned by Scribe of Heaven, Metatron and ruler of East Hell, Augars, who defeated Barbatos. That question caused the murmurings to spread out through the battlefield. Barbatos, ranked 8th in the Demon King rankings, had died. However, rather than looking stunned, the Demon King's carried entertained expressions instead. To think you interfere with the great war of saints and demons, you all have lost your minds. Their gazes, locked onto my companions, were filled with clear ridicule. Their jeers were filled with the confidence of knowing that we'd not be able to rely on luck to survive anymore, like how we'd been doing until now. Their guesses were right. The members of Kim Dokya Company were in no shape to fight properly at the moment. Yu Young-hyuk's magical energy reserve had almost bottomed out from the fight against Indra, while Han Soo-young was also in an extremely fatigued state after fighting against the archangels. There was no need to mention the collapsed Yehyun or the worn-out Jiang Huiwan either. The ones that would prove to be helpful were the 3 kids who went to the next city. Ajasi, don't you worry, I'll sweep them all away. Yijai pounding her chest while saying that, and Shin Yu-seung nodding her head along, instilled much confidence in me. Like how I imagined it to be, they must have experienced incredible growth in next city. Even Yi Gil-yong's eyes were sparkling brightly as well. Hyung, who should we start killing first? Who will give us the highest experience points? Even though we were in an overwhelmingly disadvantageous position, he spoke as if he was playing a game. Incarnation, Yi Gil-yong's sponsor is looking at you. I shook my head. It was too early. It wasn't the time to utilize Yi Gil-yong yet, and even if I did, there was no guarantee of victory. Anna Croft next to me asked a question. Are you really going to fight? You must know that there is no hope of victory for you here, yes. It was rather obvious what she was aiming for as she asked that question. She was already a part of the good camp. It had proved to be the most ideal outcome for her to stab me in the back if things go wrong and join that side. We've never enjoyed good odds of victory anyway. And yes, I'm planning to fight them, and I'm also confident of winning. As long as you do betray us, that is. Anna Croft narrowed her eyes at the mention of betrayal and raised her hand up. When she did, Selena Kim and Iris standing behind her took a step forward. Nebula Asgard is backing Kim Dokya Company. Constellations and Demon Kings shouted out in sheer astonishment. Asgard, have you lost your minds too? The god of hammers must have finally hit his own head. Oh, the god of mischief, are you perhaps planning to cause chaos in this place? Even as the true voices were confusedly flying around, there were a few who still broke out in a smirk, as if the situation was unfolding in an entertaining direction for them. Such as the 5th-ranked Demon King, Black Mane Lion Marbas. What a foolish decision, oh dear Asgard. Your nebula might be powerful, but the number of constellations participating is low. It is simply far too inadequate to rock this battlefield. It's not just one nebula. Oh, then who else is there? Kim Dokya Company. You really want to call the small group with you as its sole constellation, a nebula. Loud peals of laughter rang out among the Demon Kings, but then. Constellation, father of the rich knight, is icily glaring at the constellations. Nebula Underworld is backing Kim Dokya Company. The laughter came to a sudden end. The underworld. Oh, Olympus, what is going on? Isn't that a subordinate nebula of yours? Along with those words, a corner of the battlefield opened up and Olympus made their appearance. As expected, they were participating in this scenario as well. The one standing at their forefront was a constellation we were quite familiar with. This is troublesome. We can't reenact Gigantomachia in this place either. It was the god of wine and ecstasy, Dionysus, carrying a deeply awkward smile on his face. Dionysus, are you planning to fight us? Fu, you're making me hanker for some booze right now. He pulled a bottle out from his inner pocket and gulped down some wine. Arg, I don't care. I'll just worry about it after getting drunk first. Demon King of Salvation, why don't you have a sip too? We've got a lot of things to talk about, right? Thank you for the offer, but now doesn't seem to be a good time for that. Dionysus smirked and raised a toast in my way. That was the same thing as Olympus giving me an answer, though. They wouldn't back us, but they wouldn't get hostile with us either. Now that a great nebula had suddenly decided to postpone their participation, a certain flustered atmosphere permeated into the camps of good and evil. I didn't miss that opening and dug right in. Well, looks like the introductions are over and done with now, so let's start fighting already. My provocations aroused the wrath of constellations and demon kings from both camps. Anna Croft must have not expected me to be this direct, because she was now looking at me with an expression that said, "Are you insane?" Han Soo-young spoke up. "You're surprisingly slow in the uptake for a prophet, aren't you? Just sit back and watch." Anna Croft closed her mouth shut after being rebuked by Han Soo-young. In the meantime, a demon king stepped forward while unsheathing a jet-black sword. Even though the situation was turning more volatile, both Agars and Metatron maintained their silence. Many demon kings are displaying strong animosity towards you. Along with a sharp noise of air splitting apart, the demon king's sword moved towards me, but at that moment, a message popped up. Members of the same camp clashed against each other. Increasing chaos points have accelerated. Chaos points have risen up by 1. Current chaos points, 76. The Demon King blinked its eyes in sheer shock. And in the distance, I could see the hardened expressions of Metatron and Agars, too. They were now staring at the night skis of the star stream. They must have realized it by now. In order to attract the attention of the constellations, I used my true voice. The opponents you wish to fight are neither good or evil. Kim Dokya Company included members of both good and evil. And becoming hostile with our nebula meant that you were going against the very essence of the great war of saints and demons itself. If you want to kill us, I'm sure you can. However, what will happen to you if you do? On the far side of the sky, the clouds filled with the aura of chaos were swirling around ominously. When the chaos points go past 80, the countdown to the apocalypse would begin, which meant that it'd be a game of chicken from now on. Most ancient good is glaring at you. Most ancient evil is glaring at you. It was the game where the first one to get scared and back off would become the loser. Which one will be faster, us dying or all of you getting annihilated by the apocalypse dragon? Aren't you curious? I unsheathed unbreakable faith and smiled. I'm really curious, actually. Chapter 400, Book of Revelation 2. If you were to unpack the contents of my declaration, then they went along the lines of kill us, and you will definitely die too. At first the constellations were agitated, then they began whispering among themselves, and finally silence descended in their midst. Some stared at Agars, while the others at Metatron. They were the holders of the highest authorities on this battlefield, but they simply maintained their silence with unreadable expressions on their faces. However, even though no orders were issued, the clouds of war unexpectedly began churning slowly on the outskirts of the gathered masses. Kim Dokya Company, we know very well what you're trying to do. It was a constellation from Papyrus who roared out with true voice. However, we still have a score to settle with you. I wonder about that. It's hard to tell who is owing who here. My retort prompted the constellations of Papyrus, to free their weapons from their sheaths. You said that you're neither good nor evil. That also means you are both good and evil, too. Nebula Papyrus had chosen to affiliate themselves with evil. We will kill all those beastards that have sided with good, at the least. What a wise decision that was. The chaos points only rose up when good fought against good, and likewise, when evil fought against evil. Papyrus had figured out a way to judge us without going against the rules of this battlefield. The most ancient evil wishes for your elimination. The most ancient good wishes for your elimination. We were nothing more than viruses in this great war of saints and demons, hosts that interfered with a system that was operating normally to spread infections around. With Papyrus as the center, the waves of good and evil were growing larger and larger. Constellations burning in animosity towards each other only a few moments ago were now all redirecting their hostilities towards us. Kugugugugu. The expressions of my companions froze up. Yu Yonghyuk changed his attitude and spoke. Kim Dak-ya. He must have known it, too, even if Underworld and Asgard were with us, even if the members of Kim Dak-ya Company were in one place. If we clashed directly against them, then someone in our group would definitely die. Suddenly my perception sped up, and time slowed down somewhat. Their advancing speed is quicker than I thought. Too many constellations came to their decision too quickly. Maybe I should have reached 80 in the chaos points first. Several sentences flitted in and out of my head. I recalled the ways of survival. Who should I ask for help if I were to emerge victorious from this situation? My adopted parents in the underworld. The great sage, the equal of heaven, who hadn't participated in the war yet. Or the outer god-grade, secretive plotter. Chiak Junjeong and the constellations from the Korean peninsula. Even the faces of my teachers and Jang Hayoung floated up to the fore, too. Especially Jang Hayoung. Although I desperately needed help, I thought that it'd be for the best if she didn't show up. Fruit of good and evil is stimulating your guilty conscience. Maybe this could be my sense of responsibility. I hope that Jang Hayoung, born to this world because of me, wouldn't get swept up in the scenarios. My small wish that she'd get to live her own story in her own terms. The reason why I didn't advise Jang Hayoung to join Kim Dak-ya Company or reveal the information on the future was that I felt such ambivalent emotions. Alec. The ranks of the reincarnators meeting the enemies at the forefront were collapsing. They screamed as tsunami waves swept them up and tore them apart. Die. Han Soo-young looked at the constellations and demon kings rushing at us while spouting trite remarks and smiled nervously. Looks like we're going to win. Those muttering such lines would die the quickest, you see. The corners of the companions' lips twitched energetically at her timely joke. Here they come. Their utterances might have been trite, but their statuses were certainly not. Good and evil might have been the stalest of fables in this world, but it was also one of the most powerful as well. The nervousness I felt through my skin was different from all the other battlefields I had experienced so far. This was all for real. This was the great war of saints and demons, and this was the true power of the constellations. Quack-quack-quack-quack. The status of good and evil, seemingly large enough to completely blanket the entire great battlefield. Its crashing waves had reached right before our noses in no time at all. 300 meters. 200 meters. 100 meters. Yu Yonghyuk spoke, now. Everyone knew what their roles were. The members of Kim Dak-ya Company unleashed their statuses simultaneously. Narrators of Nebula Kim Dak-ya Company have gathered. Fable Demon World Spring has begun its storytelling. Fable Torch that swallowed the myth has begun its storytelling. Demon World Spring wrapped around us as if to protect us, and Torch that swallowed the myth began screeching as if it'd rip anyone approaching us to shreds. Still, these two alone wouldn't be enough to stop them from coming. Even if they were the same great fables, the time experienced was different. That enormous gap couldn't be bridged with the 50 years in Kaiksanix archipelago. Even then, this was our story. 30 meters. Yijai finished loading the cannons and raised her sword up high. Just as the dragon-head figurehead began reddening up as the maritime war god's blessing descended upon us. Wait! I stopped Yijai. Her jaw slackened from shock. I reached out and grasped her sword, faltering aimlessly in the air. The cannon on the verge of firing withdrew its energy. What the hell are you doing, Ajasi? Other companions were also surprised by my unexpected action. To think, I'd suddenly interfere when we found ourselves in a situation where we'd surely die even if we struggled with all our might. Rather than a verbal answer, I pointed towards the opposite side instead. Ugh. With exactly 10 meters to go, the waves of good and evil had come to a standstill as if it was all a lie. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. As if they were being powerfully restrained by something. The faces of constellations grumbling away and the demon kings spewing out choice words could be seen pretty close to us. Some carried dissatisfied expressions, while others looked relieved. But why so suddenly? I realized the reason pretty soon. A single constellation and a single demon king were floating up above the frozen tsunami wave. That was why. They were Metatron and Augars. Two of the strongest beings in this battlefield had for the first time unleashed their true voices. All constellations, withdraw your hostilities and return to your positions. The battle will be paused for the time being. I raised my head up towards the air above, after hearing their sudden declaration of a ceasefire. The reason for the ceasefire could be seen etched in that spot. Chaos points have surpassed 80. Countdown to apocalypse has begun. Chaos points of 80. It really was a close call, too close for comfort. What saved us wasn't constellations or the demon kings. No, it was the weakest faction in this battlefield instead. There must have been the cases of the same camps clashing during the reincarnators dying at the front line. Weak good was still good, and weak evil was still evil. The good and evil became obsessed only with killing us, and as a consequence of disregarding such weaklings, it was now on the path towards the apocalypse. From here on, chaos points will rise by 1 point every 30 minutes. Once the chaos points exceeded 80, its rate of increase would speed up. Even if there was no clash from here onwards, it'd continue to climb up, and in exactly 10 hours, it'd reach the critical point. In other words, the revival of the apocalypse dragon would commence. The most ancient calamity at the deepest part of hell is feeling pleased. One of the absolute worst calamities in the history of the star stream, the apocalypse dragon, whether it be the good or evil camp, none wanted to see its revival. Once the dragon revives, at least a quarter of all constellations in the star stream would die. That was why. Anyone from this battlefield could become part of that quarter. Great battlefield of great war of saints and demons has come to a temporary standstill. Representatives of good and evil are currently in an emergency conference. And so that message floating in the air signified both good and evil struggling bitterly in order to survive no matter what. You have accomplished a feat no one has achieved so far. A myth-grade fable is germinating within you. Your new modifier will reflect this fable. Chet, I wanted to see how much stronger I got, though. I patted Yi Gilyong's head as the boy grumbled to himself. We were currently sitting inside the passenger compartment of the battleship, Turtle Dragon. Jiang Huiwan and Shin Yuseung were nursing Yi Hyun-seong as he lay unmoving like a dead man, while Yi Jai looked wholly unconvinced by something else. Is this really the end? But we haven't even fought for real, though. Even though she said that, there was a relieved expression on her face as well. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is congratulating you on your success. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is feeling apologetic towards you. Uriel, it'll be fine to speak in your true voice. Uriel, currently squatting by the corner of the cabin, lowered her head towards me. For some reason, I thought I could understand where she was coming from. just a little bit. Right now, she felt responsible. The fact that her nebula had attacked Kim Dokya Company, and then, in regards to the things done by those claiming to be absolute good, too. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking up at you with tearful eyes. You don't have to worry, Uriel, we don't hate you. And as for Eden, honestly speaking, my grievances towards them aren't much. We've received their help before, too. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, asks if you're telling the truth. I was lying. However, it'd only hurt Uriel if I revealed how angry I was. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, says that the scribe isn't such a bad being. I also know what kind of a constellation Metatron is. Please, you should rest for a bit, I said before leaving the cabin. 30 minutes have elapsed. Chaos points are rising up by 1. Current chaos points, 82. Alongside the messages entering my ears, there it was, a giant gray sphere floating up in the air. Its inside couldn't be spied on. Most likely, every single top-ranked demon king and archangel was in there, having a conference right about now. And it was also quite likely that the good and evil were talking crap about Kim Dokya Company and Demon King of Salvation, in one voice too. Kim Dokya. I flinched and looked back to find Han Soo-young staring at me. I spoke first. Whenever you call out my name lately, I can't help but get scared first. It's like you must have caused another accident. It's you who causes accidents instead, complained Han Soo-young, before shifting her gaze over to the sphere and asking me, what are they really thinking about? What do you mean? Isn't this whole thing unfolding too smoothly? It's because they don't want to die either. You really think that's all? She narrowed her eyes and glared at me. Fable, predictive plagiarism, is continuing its storytelling. Judging from the whitish fragments of the fable floating around, it seemed that she had activated predictive plagiarism and kept it up ever since that conference had commenced. I asked her, what do you think then? They are just too quiet. Even if they are terrified of the apocalypse dragon, something just feels off, you know. Indeed, the instincts of an author could be very sharp. Actually, I agreed with her opinion too. A conference of good and evil, it sure sounded nice. However, the Metatron I knew would never back off in such circumstances. He was the type of guy who'd sacrifice anyone in order to perfectly fulfill the absolute goods premise. I stared at the gray sphere and spoke. I don't know what they are cooking up over on that side, but there is a way to find out what will happen in the future. What is that? I looked straight at Han Soo-young, and soon her jaw dropped. God damn it, we had that method, didn't we? Whether it was a conference or war, it'd come to an end in the next 9 hours. And if it was that sort of a near future, then we knew of a being who could read it better than anyone else in this world. We quickly dashed towards the cabin at the rear. The thing was, the person we were looking for was already with us by now. Hey, Miss Prophet. We barged into the room, only to find an unexpected guest there. Yu Young-hyuk and his scary scowl were busy grabbing onto Anna Croft's collars at that moment. He spoke, what bullshit are you talking about? It is exactly as I said. The shocked Han Soo-young hurriedly shouted out, Hey, you crazy bastard, what are you doing? Yu Young-hyuk looked back at us with an emotionless expression before releasing Anna Croft's collars. She formed a refreshing grin after discovering us and waved her hand. Thank you for saving me, as expected of the Demon King of Salvation. Well, I wasn't really trying to save you or anything, but you came to see me for the same reason, I suppose. Han Soo-young and I stared at Yu Young-hyuk, and he glared right back as if to ask why we were looking at him. As expected, he was really quick with things like this. He came up with a solution to this situation way quicker than us, in other words. Han Soo-young began gnashing her teeth as she was unhappy about this. Sadly, though, he didn't carry the expression of a victor. Anna Croft spoke, Let me get right to it then, I can't see the future. What do you mean by that? Several thoughts floated up in my head then. Now that I thought about it, Anna Croft couldn't predict the future related to me. I remembered that the fourth wall had something to do with it. What did she say back then? Was it, "There's noise hiding the future," as if someone drew graffiti all over it? But then Anna Croft was shaking her head. It's not the noise obscuring the future, but I simply can't read it at all. It's not as if someone has doodled on the page, but more like the page with the doodling on it didn't exist in the first place. Han Soo-young and I exchanged glances. An ominous foreboding slowly crept up over me. Kim Dak-ya this. Not like doodlings on a page, but the page itself had disappeared. No matter how hard I thought about it, there could only be one type of future like that. Can it be? As if it was waiting for this moment, messages suddenly floated up in the air. Chaos points is rising up by 1 point. Current chaos points, 83. But it hasn't been 30 minutes yet. It's not rising up because the time has elapsed, said Yu Young-hyuk in a hardened voice. Time hadn't passed by, yet the chaos points had risen up. In that case, there could only be one possibility. Members from the same camp have clashed. Current chaos points, 84. Someone was trying to destroy this world.